Grasso the other night, before I forget. There was a question about the charter services. He said that the costs are associated with both cable TV services as well as internet to the building. The monthly cost just increased from $154.61 to $159.61. So the cost for 1 year would be $1,915.32, and he budgeted $2,000. So that it's pretty much in line. In case there's another increase, which there seems to be.
But my bigger question is why is it only $800 for like the senior
I
center?
don't know.
Why is it a different price in another building?
I've noticed that too, yes. Anyway, we do have,
And I think we asked that question last year, the year before, too.
I know, and some of it's different contracts and maybe somewhat different services.
Well, they're all charter.
But they're all charter, yes, or Spectrum, really, now. So first person up is Chief Ford. Thank you for coming, Chief.
Thank you for having me tonight. How's it going?
Good. Aaron is missing. Oh, and Mike had his you, but he was not able to be here tonight. Mike Hager, but he went over this quite a bit with you, didn't he? Chief, Mike Hager? Talked to you a bit?
Mike and I hadn't connected fully. Our schedules are kind of
Oh,
off a bit, so I can't say that we talked a lot about everything.
I could probably help a little bit.
yeah, you were right last year, so. So we'll do your budget first, and then we'll do the capital and betterment. So the line item budget is on page 23 of the detail. So I have written down, is there going to be a decrease in the overtime from the get-go here? Am I wrong in having
Was
written
that
that down?
$4,700?
Approximately 40,
I wrote down 4684.
that sounds about right. I don't,
Oh, okay. I had 4,700. 4,684 to be
I
specific.
have 468375, so 4684 was perfect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We have different methods of rounding, I guess. Okay. And why that decrease?
We
Something to do with
fact-
the SROs.
We factored the SROs, we factored 10 vacation days
Oh.
for coverage, 3 personal days, and 11 holidays for the SRO, all days that won't need to be filled for that position.
Oh, okay.
When we were budgeting it as if it was a regular line officer.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Okay. Where would you like to start? Of course, we've heard from you already on the Saturday meeting. Is there anything else that you'd like to highlight, I guess, or anything else anybody would like to question on the regular budget? Kevin.
Just a couple of things. It's just the ergonomic keyboards for $15. Why is that part of your budget, not part of the IT budget? It's 15 ergonomic keyboards for roughly $500. Why isn't part of the town's normal replacement plan, or is the police department always handled separately?
Where, it's, just trying to recall the keyboard exchanges for the, I think it was because it was gonna go department-wide as opposed to being part of the public safety complex costs. And I think that was one of the items that we were trying to put in for through another method, and I think that they were just trying to do it as a one-time purchase, similar to what they've done in the past for other equipment for the department.
So it's
I
specific
can't,
to
there's no
police
reason
department.
why it couldn't be part of the public safety complex, I just think it was included in our budget.
Okay. And then also, the depth finder for the bow.
Yes.
Is that because you've had an incident with the bow and running aground, or?
It is to prevent any incidents from, any further incidents from occurring. I don't have any knowledge of any incidents, however, I think there's been a couple of close calls with some of the rocks that are in Big Alum, et cetera, when they get closer to the shoreline and some of the waterways that we have. So this is to ensure that when officers, the focus is on a boat that they're coming close to, or coming close to a dock or the shoreline, that there's a warning system that's available for them so that they don't follow a prop on the motor. I think the underside of the boat should be able to handle most of the issues up there at low speed. It's just the prop that doesn't fare very well in the shallow waters.
Do you have any other questions
I have
right
no,
now?
No, otherwise,
'Cause I
we
know,
House Street.
I know Jim does.
You done, Kevin?
I am. Good.
I just, as I was going through the book again and getting ready for tonight, I went back to the March 23rd presentation when Barbara, and it says on the police department, this is in the book, under
The message.
budget message. And it said that the budget increased approximately 277,971, or 11.3%, due to the increases because we had retroactive contracts for the police department, 18, 19, and 20, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so my question is, 2/3 of this is covering 18 and 19, or is it covering it's covering all three? This is, 1/3 is due to approximately to 20, 1/3 to 19, and 1/3 to fiscal year 18? Is that accurate?
I believe that they're paying the retroactive aspects of FY 18 and 19 separately, and it's not included in this budget. However, the increases are similarly collective.
Okay, because the implication I got from reading this was an increase by 200 and change. The increase is due to the recent signings of a new 3-year police union contract, and it goes on to say it's for those 3 fiscal years. So I assume some of that, like, that was a
Yeah, I do
carryover for
too.
each
Yeah, I
of the
do
years.
too.
Well, the collective, just from a salary and wages standpoint with the collective bargaining agreement, there was a 3% increase for fiscal 18, 3% for fiscal 19, and 3.5 included for fiscal 20. So the deviation from what we have here is 3 years collectively, so that would make the difference.
I got the impression that 278 was the accumulation of the 3 years, from the way she wrote this, if that's not correct. I'd like to know that, if that's how I read it. Did anyone else read it
Right.
that way?
Yeah, I read it that
I
way.
did
That's how I
too.
saw it too, but I'm wondering, since the town administrator is here, if he would know, is there a warrant article that makes up it for some type of salary shortfall?
Yes.
Due to the budget? There is for the police
There will
department?
be a warrant article that addresses the 2-year retro.
Oh, okay.
So
The
that,
calculation has yet to be determined, it's gonna be plus or minus 200,000, we believe at this point, but Barbara and her staff are still working that out.
That's in a warrant article, not in these numbers.
that's,
Yes, it'll be a warrant article.
Because that's what was confusing me, because it made me think, well, if 2/3 of this is going away in the next budget year, because we're catching up with that, but that doesn't appear to
Well,
be
it's,
the case.
So it's in addition to this 278 then?
well, there's 209,000 going into salaries and wages. So that's gonna be the 3.5% plus any of the, I'm gonna call it the Quinn bill, but I know it's not the Quinn
Well,
bill payments anymore.
But you have no increases in any of the previous 2 fiscal years. So if you had those increases in those fiscal years,
And what I'm saying is, now we're incurring those increases, but after we incur those increases, they'll be paid, and we won't have.
I didn't see that, and I hadn't been questioned about that, so
Okay.
I would have to sit for at least a few moments here and go through some of the
See my
calculations to
logic?
try.
If we had
Oh,
to catch up 100 grand
I
on
do.
17 and 18.
I do, but
and
we're
we
also,
pay it-
we're also talking about essentially 9.5% or 10.5% increases across the board for all these
Yeah, when it
employees.
comes-
From
yeah.
0 to 10.5 multiplied by 25 employees, how much does that equal?
Right, I understand.
So does that equal 270?
Yeah, you've got 3 years of increases into 20,
It's-
but you're paying the retro on a warrant article.
The retro's
Okay,
separate,
I-
the retro's separate, but.
Oh.
You've gotta take that percent and multiply it over those years and come up with a new number for next year.
Going forward.
So it's in addition to this
Okay.
278
So
number?
that number is going forward, and we're gonna fix the retro with the warrant article. Okay.
Correct.
Oh, all right, yeah, that makes a little more sense now.
That makes more sense, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was just confused by the way this was written. Okay, so that clarifies it for me, thank you.
So you're gonna have to start negotiating almost right away?
I'll
Yes.
just right away.
pretty
Yes.
much.
Wow.
Whoa.
Well, you're experienced at it now then.
Probably by the end of the summer, we'll start again.
Ay, ay, ay. Putting Jeff's feet to the fire right away, huh?
That's it.
All right, well, I'm glad we clarified that, because that was a little,
I was a little confused with it.
I think a number of us were. Let's see.
Unless there was additional manpower that we missed that you were trying to put in for us. You wanna talk about that?
There's gotta be.
'Cause I think we have I've always submitted a B budget in the past, but I
Right.
didn't this year, but we can certainly come up with one for you in short order. Because it's there. It's just not here.
I just had a question on your supplies. Even though it didn't go up, in fact, it actually went down, but you've got a bunch of these new one-off costs, right? Are they,
At the bottom there?
yeah, are they going to be, like, are these new things, Tom, that are gonna be every year?
Are the recurring costs? No, I don't see any of those being recurring costs. I see those just as one-off operational.
They're just miscellaneous, oh,
And
including
again,
the keyboards, yeah.
to Kevin's point, I think there's a few of them in here that could have went by way of the public safety complex because, for the refrigerator for the dispatch center and such. The swabs for DNA collection, et cetera, that would maybe every other year, maybe every third year, depending upon, we don't know how many we're gonna be using and how
Are
often.
they like mouth swabs? Is
Yes,
that-
very similar to what you see in the
Commercials?
commercial.
Right, so,
Hmm.
but would they not, I mean, I don't know how you guys do it, but do you have like a little medicine cabinet or something, or
Well, we have the evidence.
something that you wouldn't,
We've had the evidence refrigerator where they'd be stored. However, these would be stored in one of our equipment closets.
yeah.
And if necessary, they'd be distributed to the field and they'd be properly stored in the cruisers.
Okay, I guess that's what I was just wondering, I know all your guys have, and girls have their own kits and whatnot.
Correct.
Um,
Well, that would be included in the kit if it was a necessary field item or taken out there as part of an investigatory pack. But right now, because of it's newer technology for us in the field, we are, we're hoping to see, again, what our requirements are going to be, how often we're going to be using them, and if we're going to be needing them. Because, again, as with anything in today's day and age, it continues to evolve, and so does, while the technology evolves, so does the rules and the applications and case laws changing, et cetera. So
Oh, yeah, I mean, and
freedom
don't
of
get me wrong,
obtaining-
I'm not
obtaining
questioning.
that information. So I have no idea. Again, I'm sure the manufacturer has standards for how the sterilization and kept, no different than any of the medical equipment we have. So it'll be stored similarly in a location. And I don't think that they're going to be out in the open air or any place that would be a chance of being compromised, because it would compromise the integrity of our investigation if those were not properly
Right.
kept in an area that was secure and free from other contact.
And I'm not questioning, the $65 item. I just found it interesting that all these things are kind of called out, where I would have, I don't know, I guess I would have just expected them to be included somewhere else. No big deal. And the 12,000 last year, the 12,800 for the new office equipment hire. Why is, just refresh my memory, why is that so high from last year to this?
I think this was the additional position that we
Oh, what, okay.
created.
So that includes all of their,
All their
Uniforms and
equipment,
stuff?
yes,
Oh,
all
okay.
all their equipment. And as well as the new dispatchers also, the dispatchers also require uniforms and equipment.
right, okay. Now, the new police officer that was just sworn in, they're covered, right? That person's covered?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's all set.
Other questions?
I have broader ones specific that And the budget one is, I take it from seeing the costs in your budget that you're still the emergency response coordinator,
Emergency Management Director, yes,
director?
yes.
Is that still, has that been adjusted so that's now part of your full-time responsibilities? or
It
is that
has,
still-
it has been part of my full-time responsibilities since May 2006.
Well, it kind of got handed to you when the previous emergency coordinator, but has it been?
That hasn't changed. My responsibilities and duties and obligations to that position have
Okay.
not changed in all those 13 years.
Okay. And then the other one is, I know, and I've read it in the back, you always have a manpower proposal, but for people at home, could you just recap? We know that the other night, the fire chief was here, and he's now fully staffed and very comfortable with his contingent of town employees. Are there any needs for the police department at the same time?
I have asked for manpower increases since the first budget that I proposed to the town. The first year I was able to introduce a budget as a police chief, and since that time, I've asked to increase our staff for a number of reasons. The first and foremost is the number of dispatchers that we have in our dispatch center. To increase those dispatchers to the necessary number that we need to fully man that dispatch center by the standards that are established for emergency medical dispatch and public safety dispatch communications. We do police, fire, and EMS. Our dispatchers are also dispatching, utilizing emergency medical dispatch protocols. And according to the NFPA standards, the National Fire Protection Association standards, it's supposed to be manned with 2 certified EMD, emergency medical dispatchers, at all times. And we haven't complied with that standard at all, and we still don't. We've tried to piecemeal the dispatch center together with part-time dispatchers, monies from state grants that we received to pay for the part-time dispatchers that don't come out of our operating budget to augment our single dispatch position that's there at the communications center. So we are making progress. While it's slow, we're still making progress nonetheless. We went from a half a dispatcher, a half a fifth dispatcher to a full 5th dispatcher. Now we have a full 6th dispatcher. So we're slowly getting there. And it's progress, but it's not the kind of progress that I think that we have or needed in the past several years that I've requested, or all the years that I've requested a manpower increase in that particular section of the department. Additionally, as far as police officers, firmly believe that we need 2 additional full-time police officers for patrol, general patrol, due to just the amount of calls for service we have, the size of our community, the numbers of activities that the officers are involved in, initiatives that they're involved in, and the amount of services, the various services that we provide to the community. In addition to those positions, one of the recommendations I had also was for a detective. While we're still a small community, we still don't have anybody dedicated to investigations. So if any actions that come in that require investigations, you pull the one of the 3 or 2 patrol officers that are on patrol off the road. So essentially, you're reducing your active patrol force by 50%, or 33 1/3% in some instances, for countless hours, while the officer conducts whatever type of investigation it is, whether it's a B&E, sexual assault, identity theft, and a myriad of crimes and activities that may be going on in town here. And it just to give you an idea, for a simple, and I say simple, but for a simple arrest for operating under the influence, a police officer is taken off the road for 4 hours out of his 8-hour shift to complete the reports and submit all the necessary paperwork for that one single arrest. So for that entire time, that officer is in the station working on that report while one other officer, or maybe two, depending upon the schedule, are out on the road for patrols and responding to calls. Now, if it's one of two officers, then that officer will have to put down his report and go answer the call, then come back to the report. And oftentimes, the reports are completed on overtime. So the overtime budget continues to be tapped into to cover those costs. I think that as the complexity of the policing grows, I think that as our community size grows, I think it's important for us to try to understand the needs of the community from a public safety standpoint. And, you know, there may come a time, maybe it's during my time, maybe it's after my time, where there's a study that's done to find what the true personnel needs are of our police department, and to see what we actually need, and to see if I'm within my request, and if I'm staying within the confines of my request, if I'm exceeding my request, if my requests are, my requests haven't changed in all the years that I've been the police chief, and I don't see them changing anytime soon, but I understand that we're confined by the budget, we're confined by the costs, and, you know, I'll continue to express the needs, but there's gonna come a time when there has to be some change, and as you'll see in my manpower proposal, we really haven't put, well, it may seem like we have turnover, it's turnover of the same positions. We haven't really added anybody to the department out in the patrol forces in quite some time. And we used to joke here at these meetings how, all right, well, you know, Greg waited for his fourth crew for X amount of years, so okay, you're next. You know, you wait you wait in line till it becomes your turn. You know, I think it really needs to we really need to take a look at this scientifically and do a real needs assessment and find out what our needs are. Do we have enough? Is it enough? Do we need more? Do we have too many? You know, I mean, that we need to find that out. You know, I think that we try to schedule as best we can. I think that the type of schedule that we have affords us the greatest coverage and the greatest opportunity for our personnel to be out there. I think that we do have a very robust overtime budget that covers the other needs of the department and the other initiatives. And while we budget for worst-case scenario in our overtime budget, there comes years where we have to ask for transfers in those monies, and other times we give back a significant amount of it. So I do continue to think that we need a detective's position. We need some police officers, at least one or two more, and we certainly need to take a second or third look at our dispatch center and think about manning that with 2 dispatchers at all times.
What would it take to do that now? We have 6 full-time now.
My recommendation was 10, and that estimate was merely off of my own experiences, where when we had 5 dispatchers, we could cover all 3 shifts with limited vacancies. While there was a 100% fill rate, every time one of them took the day off, they had to be filled. I think if we doubled that, that would just naturally give us 2 and covering all the shifts as we were covering them now.
I have 2 more kind of follow-up questions. Daryl, thank you for the explanation, because I know you bring this forward every year, but sometimes these get lost sight of when they're not discussed every year. And so I asked the fire chief last night too, so currently right now, what's the composition of the police department? You know, 1 chief, 3 lieutenants, 1,600 sergeants, and 2 You know, if you could just let us know what.
That would be great. Making sure my math is correct. I'm gonna get this wrong.
I have it written down from Saturday if I.
I'm gonna,
Oh, did
I'm
you?
gonna,
Do you want me
I'm
to
gonna go,
just
I'm gonna
yell it
go.
out?
We have the chief,
Yeah.
lieutenant, 3 sergeants,
And
And we
15
have-
full-time?
2 school resource officers. These are all full-time employees. 2 school resource officers, and 13 patrol officers. That should be
15.
20, right?
And is the
But
animal
15
control
police
officer-
officers is what, right?
the chief, the lieutenant, and the 3 sergeants. 2 school resource officers and
6, 7.
13
that's
patrol
20.
officers.
Is there an animal control officer or not?
There is an animal control officer's position. It's a 25-hour-a-week position. That's separate from
I
that.
think that's a separate line, isn't it?
We have 6,
No, it's in his
No.
budget.
we have now
though.
6
I know it's in his
full-time
budget, but I thought it was a
dispatchers
different line.
and 6 part-time
Maybe not.
dispatchers. Now, we have 1 part-time police officer position, but that's not full right now. But that's a position that we're trying to get filled.
So you used to have the part-time, you no longer have the
Just
part-time?
one, no, it hasn't been filled. That position was filled, but when we had a vacancy, a full-time vacancy, we withdrew from that
Person
position.
took it.
So we haven't backfilled that yet.
Okay.
In
And-
my I'm sorry.
No, I was
my-
just gonna say, I thought on the Saturday, you said you had 7 part-time dispatchers. 6 full-time,
We
7
just had
part-time?
1 resign.
That's right, you did, yeah,
Recently.
I think we knew that.
6 new part-time dispatchers now.
I have another question.
Can I just ask, Jim, I think this is for you, because someone in one of our earlier meetings mentioned that there's a study, another study forthcoming about, pay raises and ranges and the whole bit. Is it also gonna include manpower work? Is it, so that we look at the staffing of the departments and say, we are staffed or not? Do you know the details of that?
Not aware of that, no.
Because I know you
Jeff is
talked
shaking
about
his head
making
no.
sure that we had very well defined what we wanted this study to accomplish.
And I don't know what the definition of that is. I just was trying to emphasize that it better be well-defined, and we better said,
I got the,
I think
I
that would
got,
fall to Jeff, but,
I got the impression you were involved. in
He's
studying
shaking his head no.
no, I heard it. And that's why, when we
So-
were talking about it, I was like, we do all these feasibility studies, but if you don't define it, the answer you get may not be
what
The
you were
answer you're
looking
the
looking
kind of
for.
information you were looking for.
There is a vacant lieutenant's position, as you recall from last year, we had the chief, 2 lieutenants, and 3 sergeants. However, given our manpower shortages, I saw more of a need to have a patrol officer position now than I do have in that administrative position. We did set aside some overtime monies in our overtime accounting to cover for some of those administrative duties to be conducted by supervisors on an overtime status, so the administrative tasks can be accomplished, but they'll be accomplished at an overtime rate. We try to do our best on estimating how much that would be, and we came up with a number and included it in our overtime budget just to cover for that. It's nowhere near the cost of another position. However, it is within the difference between a patrol officer's position and the lieutenant's position. So it's not any type of increase. If that makes any sense. Well, I don't have any intention of filling that lieutenant's position until the composition of the department changes, because right now I need more officers out there than administrators.
Chief, in your letter, you reference a figure of 28,000 calls for service per year. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's quick math, an average about 3.5 calls per hour.
But, and please allow me the opportunity to define what a call for service is.
Sure.
A call for service is any type of call that comes into the department that requires an action by a member of the police department.
So it's not necessarily 911
No,
calls.
the officers on administrative reports is a call for service. An officer conducting a building check is a call for service. An alarm call is a call for service, a medical call is a call for service. A lot of the exterior calls, but there are interior calls for service. A call for service where an officer is maintaining the equipment, cleaning the cruisers, or training, those are calls for service as well. Anything that requires an action of the officer.
Okay.
So they can be broken down through our records management system into individual groups of calls, but just so you're aware that that's any action and activities that we have that are reportable to our dispatch center.
Okay.
Actually, Jared, if anyone wants to look at it, I do get the monthly report that he gives, and I just happen to have one with me.
I'd
if
like
you
to
wanna-
have that, yeah.
It's from February.
And you can get those online through our website too, I believe it.
They're fairly, and they
Oh, wow.
do comparisons of, the last 2 years, I think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, just my point in bringing up that number was that while we were talking for the last half hour, on average, there would have been 2 or 3 or 1 to 2 calls for service just during this short time. So I think it goes to emphasize the point that there's a lot of activity being flowed through the dispatch.
Yes, and that every call for service requires the dispatcher to take some action as well, even if it's just entering that call and letting the log know what's occurring.
Right. I think a lot of people probably in the public have the perception that the dispatch center often just waiting around for something to happen, but in fact, it sounds like it's quite busy constantly.
They are. And the calls for service include walk-ins. The calls for service include other service calls that may come into the department, and for each department too. That's just not police. That is for police, fire, and
both,
EMS.
right?
That's
Or all three,
all the
really.
calls for service that the dispatch center's taking. But those calls for service, a majority of them that come in because they require a police officer to take action, remember the police department to take action, that's how those are recorded, and that includes the fire and EMS calls if we are dispatched to all those.
Could I just add clarification, and just on this report, because I may have misunderstood how this works. This is just the calls for the service for the police department. It doesn't include the calls for service for EMS and fire in this number.
Well, there may be some of those included in that, yes.
Oh, there are, okay.
Because
That's
if-
how I thought it
Because if a
was.
police officer goes to an accident call that requires an ambulance, well, it's recorded as an accident call, but the ambulance is going there, so the fire department is included in that call. So, or if there's a fire alarm or a reported structure fire at a home, the police are dispatched there and usually will get there first. So that is a fire call that we're dispatched to. So you'll see the cruisers that are dispatched to that, and then you'll see the fire apparatus that are dispatched to that as well. So that'll be one call for service encompassing the disciplines from public safety.
Okay.
But those are included in those numbers. Those are the numbers that the dispatch center has.
Okay.
So I had a question. So it's about the overtime, and I'm just trying to get my head around this, and I may have asked this question in the past, but, so it shows overtime of about $441,000. And am I correct in assuming that that's just in the normal operation of the department, when overtime is required to do normal operations, not any type of detail work, that's the amount of money that's required to compensate our officers for the overtime they work? It doesn't include detail work, in other words.
No, there's no detail.
So
work
here's
in
my
that.
next question. So if there's detail work, do we have a number? And do the officers get paid, if we have detail work, is that what pays the officers for that overtime when they're on detail work? It doesn't come out
Details
of
and
this number?
overtime are two separate things.
But what do they get paid out of?
They get paid out of a revolving account from the town.
So that's
That's
a
separate.
different budget.
Details
So-
are right, that's completely separate. The finance department keeps a separate account for that. The private company that hires the details are billed separately. They're charged a 10% administrative fee for the service as well as a 10% administrative fee for the car
your
and the
folks are
officer's
paid out
costs.
of that separate fund on a
Right,
separate
well, the
payment?
officers are paid weekly through finance. The account itself, the revolving account itself is replenished when the entity that has requested detail pays their bill.
Okay.
And those checks are deposited in there.
So that's accounted for.
Say again?
So that's not in your budget. but
No, that is not in the budget at all. The only
But it
thing,
takes care of that.
right, there are some outside community initiatives that are included in our budget of overtime that are within the town, that are some of our functions that we have to have participation of, the Pan Mass Challenge and those sorts of
You're not gonna
events.
send someone
Those
to
are
jail
all,
for
those
that.
are all, we have events, we have overtime monies built in to calculate for those that are outside of the monies that we ask for through betterment for those special events.
But if someone needs a detail because they're doing construction and they have to.
Separate,
on the
that's
roll,
completely separate
that's
from our
billed separate,
overtime.
And the officers are compensated indirectly through that
Correct.
collection. That's-
Correct.
That's what I was.
Now, is the amount of money that, say, an individual police officer makes on a detail, would that be included in the town report in their salary?
Yes.
Okay.
That's in the other category on the town report?
Oh, okay. I don't have that.
Yeah, the other category, there's a column that says
Right.
salary, then it says other. And that
Okay,
could
yeah.
include any type of overtime from any source.
That's everything outside
So
their
that would
base
be
pay,
outside their base, anything, okay.
correct, including education incentives and such.
Since
Kevin,
since
I
the
know you're
chief
gonna
brought
ask
this up, Can
something.
I tie that in? Do you mind
Yeah,
going?
yeah, go
into
ahead,
this?
no.
This
Might
is
as well
part
not.
of the betterment, and there's, your department, the fire department has this special events overtime thing that comes out of betterment. The impression that I've been getting in the conversation so far this year is that that's really a supplement to your budget. It pays, that money is used to pay for the recurring events, like the Pan Mass Challenge and the Harvest Fest and stuff like that. So that money shouldn't be in your line item budget. It's already, some of that's being paid for out of that betterment fund as well.
Well, yes, true, but if you recall, many years ago, I was the first one to introduce that. I separated out some of the initiatives that we had that we were paying overtime for that were strictly community-based, that fell into the definition of betterment,
Okay.
and tried to isolate as many of those as I could and establish an amount of money from betterment to offset our overtime costs, so we weren't taking that money out of our overtime account, that it was the betterment committee's monies, the hotel motel tax monies for the community, that were paying the cost of those officers through an overtime. And while we established a certain number, it's been a decade now that that number's been in place, or nearly a decade that that money's been in place in that position, that same amount of money, so those are, I don't have the original.
No, I understand. I guess, the impression given by the title is that it was, we've had a lot of discussions basically related to
Well, they
that.
were special events back then, because, we had Fire and Ice, and we had the Harvest Fest on the Common, and they were all new things that were all requiring officers to come in.
First night.
Yeah, we used to have first night.
All these special events that were coming up, and we didn't, I was trying to forecast the budget for the next fiscal year, not knowing what was going to be coming up. So I said, well, if the betterment had a set amount of money that they could put aside, when these events that came up that we didn't predict or were predictable, at least we'd have something to offset the cost, so I wasn't going into a deficit with my overtime when I said yes, that I have to put an officer or 3 or 4 there. So we tried to forecast as best we could those events that we knew that were gonna happen or were gonna be reoccurring, and we put, and it still happens today. I'll get a call about, the Cancer Society's having a toll booth at Hobbs Brook. Can you see if there's an officer that can come up there? Well, I didn't plan for that in my overtime, but it's a traffic safety issue, but you're also dealing with a charity, so I have to make a decision. No, you can't do it. Or do I take an officer and put an officer up there 4 hours? Well, that's one of those special events that I didn't anticipate for. And while it may not be under betterment, and now I can take it out of my overtime, knowing that I've got some of the other costs covered through betterment for some of the other special events that occurred. I mean, I know that it's not a good local example, but that stuff happens all year long. Every year it's something different, but the ones that I could predict now, they're pretty set. So, I mean, they are special, they're events that are, outside the normal operations, and, I think that it's important to know what we do regularly, if the true number to cover those events that we have, and I think that I provide a list, if you give me a second to dig it out, I provide a list with a breakdown of the number of officers, the number of hours, and the costs. So the $10,000 that are going at those special
Oh, that
events.
goes fast,
It
yeah.
doesn't even put a dent in the first 3.
Yeah.
But at least it's offsetting the overtime, and, all those years ago, it helped out, and then when those started to occur more frequently. So either, and I don't know.
No, I understand. I think where the confusion came in is there was, I personally was approached about, and with a complaint about the road race last year. And that, you have these special event funds that pay for overtime, yet this was a charity that was forced to pay a $6,000 police bill. And they were like, well, there's $10,000 here for these offset events. But then as we've gone through the process here, and I've asked the different people, the rec coordinator, the fire chief and whatnot, it's actually not for special events that are unanticipated. They're actually, like you're saying, there are events we put in there to help offset overtime that we know are coming. And so they're special events of town origin.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's how the rec coordinator stated it to us.
And that-
So
and
that's good to
how-
know.
Well, that's how we went through the betterment, because they directly involved something to do with the community, something to do with recreation, something to do with.
But it's not a
the-
pool of money for the unexplained events that you can't plan on, the ones that weren't, in the budget cycle. It's already been accounted for and spent, pretty much.
Now they are, but
Yeah.
when we first established
They
that
weren't.
account, they weren't. And there were more of these charity-type events popping up that we didn't have funding to account for, or we'd have to go into our overtime budget for that we weren't anticipating. Well, now I think we do a pretty good job at forecasting those needs annually, but we still get surprises. We still get, either a new one will pop up and an old one will go away, or the old one will come back another year.
But you can't calculate this, but intuitively, just the incremental hotel room taxes collected on the Friday night before the kickoff of the Pan Mass Challenge, if you took all the incremental rooms that were rented and the taxes collected, I bet that far outweighs the cost of your police activity, because that's a lot of rooms and a lot of tax money
Yes.
for one night in all these hotels. That must,
And meals tax.
and meals taxes,
They do eat.
It pays for it practically, more than pays for it, I would guess.
No, and I'm not, that's not my thing. It's just that the perception was that these funds were there and that, it was for these events that just came out of the blue that people weren't expecting to happen. And then all of a sudden, there's a very large police component to the bill they're being charged from the town,
Tom, I had, a-
Was it a fundraiser?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it was.
don't know if it was a
I think it
fundraiser.
was some sort of a charity, though.
It was a charity because there were whatever the Hoyt Foundation is.
There's not many things that are for-profit. However,
Well, that's true.
I don't think we can get the coverage
Yeah.
donated.
Well, part of the complaint was here is that because of the cost associated, they actually got volunteers from the state police and other local town community police forces to come in and offset what they were told they needed for the operations. They were told they couldn't do it. The town wouldn't allow outside officers in to do it, yeah.
Boy, I'd like to sit down with that person and you and hash that out, because that's news to me.
Okay, that's good to
But
hear because
Yeah,
it was
I've tried
quite
to work with those, with some of those committees when they realize how much police services are going to cost, and say, well, I'll do what I can to see if I can offset the cost by having you pay for one officer, and we'll see if we can get another officer out of our special events, or see if we can squeeze a second officer out of overtime. So you're paying for one, and the town's paying for one, so now we've got 2 officers out there for your event.
Well, in this case, I think it was, let's just say, I don't know the actual detail, but let's say they needed 4 police officers. That's what they were told they needed for this event. They got all 4 police officers from either the state police or other local communities, and so they wouldn't have needed a Sturbridge police officer, but they were still told they had to pay for the Sturbridge police.
I don't know where that's coming from. I'd have to look into that and verify that, but that doesn't sound right to me at all.
Okay. But now at least it helps clarify in my mind how the special event funds are used coming out of Betterment, because all 3 of you are giving the exact same story. They're used to pay for events that the town run or participates or something like that. And particularly, the Harvest Fest and the Pan Mass Challenge were 2 that came to
2 of
everyone's.
the big ones.
Yeah.
Those are quite big. Yeah.
Maybe you can take it offline with him to go over,
Yeah.
because it might mean that they either do come back and, again, or they don't, I would think that they would want that kind of business in town.
I'd be curious to see how that was approached or how it was interpreted. And again, I'm not gonna relinquish the police services in Sturbridge to somebody else because of cost either. However, I'd like to, I'm
There's a-
willing to be
there's a
involved.
compromise
I
that can
wanna
be
be involved
made,
at
yeah.
some point
Yeah.
in some way, and
And-
I'm gonna, you know, if that was the case, you told me you're gonna have free police officers here, 4 of them, then I'd assign a liaison to those 4 officers to ensure that there was proper radio communication, that there were proper operating protocols in place, that we had a plan, that we knew that we were all on the same page in the event of an emergency, because, you know, I wouldn't, you know, I don't know a police chief or a state police commander that would allow such a thing to occur in any one of their own jurisdictions.
Right. No, and I'm not questioning
Yeah,
it.
no, I'm just saying, that's how I don't understand where that's going from,
And,
because.
and based on your reaction and you're kind of surprised to it, I don't even think it got as far as you. I think someone may have said something before they even asked you.
Right, because and when I say I try to do my best to work and minimize the cost for a lot of these nonprofits, we do, and, you know, at the cost of our own department and the taxpayers' monies, you know, and being cognizant of that and aware of it, we try to do the best that we can to give those services out there, or to meet or match the particular charity or organization to say, hey, listen, you know, well, if we buy one, can you provide one? You know, and if I can use somebody that's already on duty, I will. If I have to take up if I have to take it up on overtime or from a special event, you know, we'll do that.
Well, thank you for clarifying.
I had 2 more things, but did you have something that you were gonna, I thought I saw you wanting to say something. I don't want to keep interrupting you.
Oh, thank you. I just had to scratch.
Okay.
for sharing.
All right, Joni.
I was being, all right. Whew. 2 things.
Thank goodness it's Thursday.
One is, going back to your staffing, right? Not to beat a dead horse, but your dispatching staff, right? So you have 6 full-time, and now you have 6 part-time, right? And then I think you would ideally like to have 10 full-time, correct?
Yes.
So, and clearly you must do studies, I'm sure you do, as to how you need these and why you need these. But what I remember talking with you about over the past few years is there not a new law or requirement or something that you have to have, if you have certain like specific, like medical dispatch or something like that?
Right, and that's what I mentioned
That's the
earlier.
law,
Well, it's-
right?
Well,
Or the
yeah,
rule,
the
whatever.
law changed several years ago. I'm sorry I don't have
Yeah.
the documentation in front of me. I believe it's 2012 that the state mandated that anybody that has a PSAP, a public safety answering point, is required to provide emergency medical dispatching. It's a state law. So in order to come into compliance with that state law, we sent everybody to EMD training, so now everybody's EMD training.
Right.
So the NFPA standards, the standards that we hold the fire services to, who also write the policies that a lot of fire departments adopt and set the standard for best practices for the fire and emergency medical services, state in their NFPA standards that if you have a communication center and you're providing emergency medical dispatch services to an EMS call, that you shall have 2 dispatchers at all times.
And how often do we have 2 people on currently, percentage-wise?
50%?
So we're
And that's
only
with,
50% compliant.
that's with hiring part-timers to backfill.
So even with the part-timers, we're still only about 50%
Yes.
in compliance with that. So, and I only bring that up, mostly because I'm sure you're gonna have a conversation with the TA, but I would hope that this is discussed in staffing and budgeting, because does that affect our accreditation or anything, or what if something, God forbid, happens and we only had the one dispatcher on? I mean, I know it can get pretty hairy back there, and to have one person on, depending on all of the different calls that they have to take, I'm just,
I would not want to speculate on that. I would defer that to,
I could think of one
Town
example where
council,
that would be, right?
Yeah.
The town gets its fire department rated for insurance purposes, so what we pay in our homeowners insurance is all based on what the town has for equipment and manpower and all that. So if the dispatch for the fire department could be affected, that's one area I could see where something that's not the direct purview of the department could be affected by the fact that we're not fully staffed.
And-
Right.
And we know that, and we spoke about this before in past discussions. We tried to enter into a regionalization agreement, and we tried to get with other communities around us to try to introduce and establish an independent public safety communication center for our communities. However, it never made it to fruition. So unfortunately, we're not gonna have any benefit from that. We thought that if that went through, that we were going to eliminate that issue with not having the two dispatchers on, and also enhance our communication capabilities as well, which was a separate issue in and of itself. So, you know, the town the town has to start thinking about what its obligations are to that particular component of public safety. And, you know, I'm not opposed to, and I don't believe the fire chief is either, researching regionalization again. It's just that it doesn't seem that our neighboring communities have an appetite for it at this time.
But you don't have to have that regionalization to have the two dispatches. You still need,
Manpower.
Right,
The
I
manpower.
just think that,
Yeah.
I think that that would have resolved it
I see.
for our community.
Um,
Establishing a communication center where they would have had 6, 8, 9 dispatchers on at one time for 3 or 4 communities.
Right. I guess I would just like to point out that perhaps it should be a priority when going through the list of needs every year, because, and I don't mean to belittle anyone, but Kevin made a comment a couple of nights ago about the priorities, you know? You know, that's not a job that I would certainly want to do, prioritizing who gets funding for what and when and where. But it would seem to me that, you know, public safety would be kind of a priority, and depending on whatever else is going on in the town, to try and get to that, the additional 50% dispatch, I would think would be a priority, no?
Well, yes, I send, I mean, every
Yeah,
year,
but why isn't
every
it?
year.
No, I know
but every
that, I
year
know
I've
that,
asked for
Tom,
that.
I agree with you, I know you
I've asked for that
have.
same thing every
Yeah.
year, so.
But it's
I mean,
never in
that's the
here.
extent, the extent of it is that manpower proposal, and then we talk about it for a few minutes, and then
I
But
guess
it's
that's,
never forth
I
to
understand.
us, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I can sense your frustration, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to ask the question again, is that this gets
it
out.
doesn't go
again,
away.
so-
It's not
right.
going away, and
But-
I put it in every year. You know, there's one
But
year,
yell.
I remember.
Yell louder,
I
perhaps?
remember one year not putting it in, and I cannot recall for the life of me who said this to me.
I think it was me.
How are we supposed to know what you need if you don't put
I
it in?
know, there's a certain member of the
And
Board
I-
of Selectmen, that's
And
one of
I-
the
and I-
things they
and I-
bring up every
I
time.
had put it in for a couple of years in a row and just said, you know.
No, you need to bring it up every year, I
But
know it's
every year
frustrating.
every year I bring it up, and, you know, when it becomes the humorous portion of my presentation, it does get frustrating, you know, and the seriousness of it is not lost on anybody in this room, because I've sat with each one of you at different times, and I've expressed my frustration, and each one of the members of the board, you know, it's what can the community afford, and what does the community have the appetite for? And unfortunately, as tradition would have it, we fix stuff that's broken. And until something breaks, it doesn't get fixed.
So and that's probably a good thing that you do have someone. Same topic?
No, I got it.
Oh, yeah, put it on the list.
Got it, yes, essay
Well, and
topic.
actually, I think, Larry, to add to that, just to add to Tom's point, because I think what gets lost is there's really 5 components to emergency services, whatever you want to call it. We always just think of 3, police, fire, and ambulance. But there's really dispatch, which is now becoming a sort of
It's
its
the
own
most
animal.
crucial
And
part
there's
of it,
the
because the
emergency-
phone call that you make doesn't come to me.
Right.
Or it doesn't go to Chief Grasso, it doesn't go to any of the paramedics.
And the other one is the emergency management coordination, too. That one gets lost as well. And that, for a while there was a lot of work involved with
There's,
emergency
you know, and
management
there still is,
coordination.
unfortunately, we have a great emergency management coordinator who helps keep everything in order with that and continues to move a lot of that forward.
Right, and then, and sorry, just to go on what you were saying, Kevin, and partly of what I was kind of getting at, you know, to to bring it to our attention. Yeah, you're gonna bring it to your liaison's attention, and, you know, but we're also limited because of this priority, right, that is before us. But in all our budget books, we used to get this budget request, and I think if
It's
we
there.
had.
It's in the
Yeah,
back.
but you know what? Come on.
Can I ask you
It's the
that?
same thing.
Can I ask you a question? Any of you?
Yeah.
What is a priority?
I went through the whole list of my priorities the other day. I have.
What is a priority? How is a priority defined by the town of Sturbridge? How is a priority defined by the Board of Selectmen? How is a priority defined by finance? How is a priority defined by the voters of this community?
No, that's-
I mean, I
It's
think once we
subjective,
get that
right?
answered, then we can
But
establish a
it's,
list of
well, it's pretty,
priorities.
it
Pretty
is somewhat
subjective.
subjective, though we did touch on it the
It
other,
is.
last week or so.
I have a very hard set rule now, I think, what the priorities should be.
We had a list somewhere that, I think public safety was always at the top of the list.
Can
I
I,
think that
Oh,
a priority
ahead.
is best understood by the consequences of not fulfilling the priority. Look what foreseeably happens if you don't.
Right.
That decides, in my view. And when it's an infant that never lives more than 20 minutes, that's a priority, and so forth. A house is burning, falling apart. It's consequences. We all live with the consequences. So, public safety, well, I've thought a little about this as a layman. I can't think of anything that preempts public safety in priority when you look at consequences of not attending to it. It just so happens that I'm a member of the statewide Reserve Medical Corps as a non-medical person, and with FEMA training and MEMA training, and in fact, training here in town. I saw you a couple of months ago at it. And so I have a teensy idea of the complexities that have to be sorted out in advance. The drills you walk through and you interrupt. No, you thought you were going, now you gotta go, no. You practice, because you play like you practice. And, well, my answer, Chief, is in terms of consequences of what does not happen, that you don't want not to happen. As the chief, the center of gravity of a definition of priority. That's at least my sense of it as an answer.
And thank you for that, Larry. I just, we have to make those determinations, and then within those priorities, like you said, it is subjective. And not only subjective to the needs of a particular agency, but the demands of the community, and you've taken that task on to try to determine those priorities. My job is just to let you know what my particular part of it needs, and we continue to come. I don't want to yell loud,
But you know what, when I talk about this department requested that I'm referring to,
but that's not
That
how the
should be-
process is.
I know, but I realize that you have this attachment, this appendix and all that with your manpower and all that, but it would be nice to actually see dollar value,
But
what is it gonna
those true numbers,
cost?
I don't think are ever there.
Well, perhaps we should have them, because it might be something that we would want to discuss, I guess.
can I ask, just for my frame of mind, because we were just doing some numbers, how many hours do the part-time dispatchers work on average a week? Or are they just really fill in here and there?
Well,
And I guess what I'm getting at is if they're now at 50%, and you have 6 of them,
no,
you put 3 full-time,
this was just filling
but,
single shifts each week. Single shifts, automatic vacancies. And I haven't been able, because that 6 dispatcher is still in training, so these numbers are not going to be accurate because we have a 6 dispatcher, so they're going to be a bit lower. But every single week, the part-time dispatchers were eligible to fill 4 shifts a week on the weekends.
But I know where Kathy's going with this.
Right.
Between your full-time dispatchers and your part-times,
However-
how many FTEs do we have? And how
However,
many more do we need?
right, but however, you've got to remember, if there's 5 full-time dispatchers, one of those dispatchers has 5 weeks of vacation.
5
Another one has
vacation
4 weeks of
holidays.
vacation. It's 100% fill rate. So every day they take off, it has to be filled by somebody. So if Barbara, our senior dispatcher, has 5 weeks, our next junior dispatcher has 4 weeks, and then another dispatcher has 3 weeks and 3 weeks and such, that's just vacation. Now, each of them get 11 holidays. And each of them get 3 personal days on top of that. So how many days are we up to now? I mean, I'm not adding them up, but those days are 100% fill. It's not, my overtime budget for police is a 45% fill rate. So that means that 55% of the time off that is accrued by those officers is not getting
Doesn't
filled.
get filled.
But that's part of the calculation. What do I need? 724, 365, 2 on a shift. I
So,
mean,
and if you take the number,
arithmetic, it
if
comes
you
out
take
and
the
say,
numbers
this
and
is how many
multiply
I
them by,
need, plus to cover all the vacations, it's probably at least another person, just to cover, because if you add 10 people and they all get an average of 4 weeks vacation, that's 40 weeks. And then the holidays. now
11
you're over-
holidays,
now
11
you're over a
holidays each
full-time
and
person.
3 personal days each.
But I think it would
And that's
help.
not to mention, they each get 12 sick days a year, and even if they average 3 a year or 4 a year
Yeah.
of sick time.
But it would help me anyway, from my perspective, to have that number and to know what that would cost to add those 4 or 5 dispatchers to get to the ideal number.
Well, right now, we get a grant from the state, and it's not gonna be here forever. We get grant money from the state to use to fill some of those shifts for the part-time dispatchers, so it's not coming out of this budget. So what I've been trying to do for the last couple of years is all those second dispatch vacancies, as many as I can. And the reason why I tried to bring in so many part-time dispatchers now is so that I could use that, I believe we're up to $32,000 now in grant money, to use that $32,000 as best I can to fulfill that second dispatch position until such time that those are full-time positions.
And I understand that, but, I'd like to see a budget. I'd like to at least have a conversation where you don't have to count on found money to fulfill our obligation to staff correctly. And if we knew that, I think you'd get a lot of support right here. I don't know.
And forgive me, because, again, it really doesn't make a good excuse for this discussion today, but I have had 2 budgets in the past.
I know,
And-
we've had this
and-
conversation.
And I haven't been doing it, and that's on me. And I could produce one. Missy, my administrative assistant, and I could sit down and probably knock one out in about an hour. So if that's something that this committee wishes to have, I can try to put it together and have it for you probably by week's end of next.
I don't know, and maybe if we can't get stuff done by town meeting, we can have meetings in the interim between this and the next one, and just
Well,
schedule
it'd be
something,
worth
go over
just to
stuff
have
like
the
that.
number to see what we're talking about.
To do
Right.
that on our
Yeah,
own
'cause
initiative
I don't think
without-
we've seen those
Okay.
numbers in a few years.
When you
No,
talk
you
about the
haven't.
budget, the department recommended budgets, and that's where those numbers were put in there, and it was always, that's how the second budget was
Right,
already
but
done
we'd-
on this form.
But it would be helpful for us to talk about it, though, truly,
And as I said, it doesn't, even if we don't have it by this town meeting, if we can schedule meetings between now and the next time there's gonna be a town meeting, maybe we can kick some stuff around and have some ideas to recommend or suggest to the
Before the
selectmen
budget.
and to
That's
other,
right.
to Barbara and to other people as to what we
Well,
think.
even if it just went into the essay and say, here's what the
Sure.
police chief's recommendations are, here's what the number looks like as it would cost the town in this particular budget year, I like Larry's definition of priority, that's, I guess that was my unsaid value of it, but I mean, that's a very good definition of what it should be. And something like that would go a lot to educating the voters, because that's part of our job, is to educate the
right.
townspeople about what they're getting out of the budget, what they're sacrificing, and so on and so forth, so they have a sense of everything we're budgeting as well, the pie's only this big,
But, and another thing I look at is the school resource thing, and I'm not diminishing the importance of that. We have 2 school resource officers, but that's out in front, and the people that are in favor of that, oh, that's wonderful, oh, we're gonna have that. But we have a dark room over there where essential services are being provided quietly out of sight, and as long as it's out of sight, everyone just does, you know, oh, but look, we got resource officers, it's only costing us $200,000, whatever it is, a year, and we have short-staffed in a critical area. But it's out of sight, it's quiet, so no one worries about it.
And it's
if you're not
working
watching
well.
this meeting
It's
tonight, you're
because
not
we've
gonna
got a
hear
great
anything about
staff
it.
that never lets
Right.
anything fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
Because it's working well, but to Larry's point, when it doesn't work well, that's when all of a sudden you realize.
Out of
you
sight,
know?
out of mind, until there's an
Until something
explosion, and then you
happens.
have a problem.
At least somebody will be talking about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true. It would be.
And just, Jim, to your point, I guess, you know, we're gonna have education here next week too. There's actually in the Tantasco region, 1.7 FTEs of school resource officers. That's how the school informed it to me based on the plan.
Bringing
of
in the other,
chiefs.
bringing in the other communities and their portion of it, yes.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that, huh?
Yeah.
So I had one more question for him. I did say I had two, Kathy. I'm not usurping everyone's time.
Ah,
It's a real quick one. On your betterment, on the drone.
Oh.
oh, well, we haven't gotten to the betterment yet.
Oh, sorry.
No, we're still, yeah, we ended up getting there because he brought up the.
Yes, he did bring
Well, I
up the
also wanted to
special.
make sure that it was. that
No, I
this
hadn't
Kathy-
I hadn't forgotten about the betterment in capital
Can I
yet.
start, or does somebody else want
Did
to?
anybody else have anything on the regular budget?
Do you want to entertain a motion on
Yeah.
this line item budget, or do you want to wait to get the new numbers? Because we always can reconsider. It's all a matter of what your
So
priorities.
I did recalculate the overtime, if you want
I
that
have
number.
it too.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you agree it's $436,016?
Oh, I just did the salaries.
Well, it's overtime.
wait a
that
minute,
gets
that's
cut.
overtime, though.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do.
Wait a minute, what line item are they? Oh, here it is, I got it. So it's,
So we would be adjusting the overtime value to $436,016.
$16.
okay.
436,016.
So do you have that bottom line number?
Really spouting
The
it off
bottom
fast.
line number is 2742184.
What about the bottom line?
Oh, the bottom, no, I didn't do that. I was actually writing you a note to do it.
Oh, you need a calculator? I don't have one today.
Well, that would be the same number, right? Just minus the 40.
No, the
Well,
police
that's
department
Minus the
total.
40.
The
yeah,
3,047,000.
Where's the 2,742 times plus the 300,000? Jim, you're the fastest one at doing this usually. Oh, you don't have your calculator out in front of you.
I've got it, hold on. real quick.
She's got one.
3047,659 minus
Are you using 4684?
4684.
Oh, well, I probably could have done that.
What? Nope, sorry, I messed up on that one. 3047,
What changed there?
659 minus
Well, I think, is that the total personnel cost?
84
Yeah, it must
is
be.
3042975.
Okay.
Okay.
So then I'll make a motion to improve the police department budget with the adjustment to overtime to $436,016 for the total amount of $3,042,975.
I'll second.
A second. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's 8-0. Wait, no, 7-0, sorry.
Said it.
This feels like 8 minutes. Okay. All right, and we can move on to the betterment. Let's see. Oh, we'll skip, well, and we'll go back to capital. Okay, so we've talked about the special events overtime. So we have, you had a question on the drone, Joni?
Yeah, my only question, because I know that you already answered quite a few of the questions, and I don't know if this was asked. You might have asked it already, but because we're so close to the Southbridge Airport, is that going to affect it? Do we need any kind of,
Yes.
Okay.
We'll need special flight permissions and notifications through the FAA because of the type of airspace that it is.
really?
And, but those are issues that will be addressed and taken care of by the person that's going to be in charge of operating the drone and any one of the flight plans that are arranged. And if it's an emergency, there are protocols for that as well.
Okay.
So do these funds pay for the drone and all the training and the licensing that need to go through? Because there's discussion now that for some of these drones, depending on their size and things, that you actually need a pilot's license?
Well, there is a pilot's license, a version of certification that's required. And we did budget for training for this in our operational account, our operational budget.
Okay.
The betterment request is simply for the equipment.
So do you foresee this in your forthcoming negotiations as being something that, because it's a specialty training, that we're gonna end up paying more for?
In what way?
In higher hourly rates for the person who has the pilot license to do
Not
the
unless you're
drone?
considering the overtime cost being a higher rate. I don't think that there's gonna be a special officer rate or a special pilot officer rate, if you will, unless that's something that the town negotiates with the police association. But we do have specialists out there now in accident reconstruction and SWAT, motors, K-9, et cetera, that don't receive any
Okay.
additional, I don't wanna call them stipends, but only in additional pay increases because of their specialty.
Okay.
They do receive stipends for certifications. That's something that they've received right along through their collective bargaining agreement. But I don't see the detective position and the court officer's position receive a different salary rate, but that's something that had been negotiated in the past. So it would have to be negotiated through. So right now, I'd say no.
Okay.
I think that, pardon me, Bruce, go ahead.
Sorry. So the personnel costs are not included in this?
No personnel costs in the betterment request for this. There's no, it's only, simply for that piece of equipment.
When were you thinking you would purchase it?
This company that, I don't know if you got a copy of the packet, there's a company in California. It's DSLR is the name of the company.
I don't think we got,
I don't remember seeing that, so I was just thumbing through it again.
Really?
Not in our package.
probably the Better Bank Committee got it, but we wouldn't have.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember seeing it.
We use the same company that the town of Oxford's using. Oxford has taken the lead for Central Mass communities, at least in the South County, for establishing drone programs in their community. They in the town of Westboro are leading the departments, the public safety departments in this technology. And so I contacted the police chief over in Oxford as they received the best recommendation for the equipment needed for the services that we'd be utilizing it for. So I went off with a quote that he had for the piece of equipment that they have over there in Oxford, and using the same company and the same specifications.
But would you expect to take delivery in the coming fiscal year? I think that was
Yes.
Bruce's question.
Yeah, that was what I was getting at. Okay.
I know one of the selling sentences here is it's expected to provide collateral services to DPW, conservation, planning, rec, and building departments. But wouldn't that mean your officer would have to be there to fly it?
Yes.
So that would be an overtime cost for your officer to be there to fly it?
Yes.
So do those departments, do these other departments that want you to go out and map something pay that overtime cost, or do you eat that as part of your budget? And is this something we should be adding in something?
They don't know that they need that service yet. So,
Okay.
Yeah, the building inspector didn't seem to know, because we did ask him.
because it hasn't been introduced, right now it's in the conceptual phase where we don't even know if we're going to get it. What we're doing is we're looking beyond the public safety aspect of it. While it's going to have an infrared camera devices, it's going to provide surveillance, it's going to assist in the search and rescue, it's going to assist the K-9 in search, in rescue efforts as far as criminal aspects of it too. There are other uses, and the more I become familiar with the uses of this, I can see how it can service the entire community in many different ways. And one is the fire department, who I'm going to ask the fire chief, and we've spoken about it already, but he's probably going to be putting in for the very same purchase next year, so that we have the redundancy and the duplication of services here. One of the things that the experts say, I've already been to a FEMA class for drones, and one of the things they say, whatever you have as a unit, make sure you have two. And it's just off of their experiences from flight issues, equipment issues, et cetera, so that if you're going to have that service and want to provide it, that you're always having a piece of equipment and operators that are available for it. So the piece of equipment, while it'd be interchangeable, so would be the pilots or the operators of that equipment. And examples are, if there's a structure fire, any type of fire, where there are hot spots in the building after presumably the fire's been out, you'd be able to see that with the infrared camera while you take the drone around. There have been instances.
I smile because the police chief was just getting 2 infrared cameras for
fire chief.
$16,000. Fire chief, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Fire chief just got that too.
There are some, I was fortunate to hear some great stories of the drones in service, where there was a fire department that had a large building, brick building that was burning, and they had knocked the fire down, but they were just letting the water pour into this certain area. Well, what they didn't realize was over to the right here was a hot spot, and then what they were pouring out, it allowed them to see where their stream was going and readjust the water so that it was more, their services were more efficiently executed there at the fire scene. And, I thought about that as, not to mention using it for conservation lands, getting over the tops of wetlands so people aren't trudging through some of the swamps and the muck, and marking out trails, setting GPS spots with the system. And there's, as you can imagine, the technology that's available to integrate this into mapping programs, et cetera. Our accident reconstruction for the investigators to plot out and map out locations for these accidents, the serious accidents. So it offers a multitude of services to the community.
It's gonna be a touchy question, but can the drone be weaponized? Because there's, I've seen these armed drones.
In theory, yes. In reality, I don't believe so. I mean, not the piece of equipment that we're looking for.
Okay,
I
so
mean, I think that there's an issue with payload with these and the abilities with them, and it's interesting to see while that's out there, we start thinking about the Amazon deliveries and such, and that technology's there, and it's real. However, one of the great applications that I've seen from public safety that I was introduced to just a couple of weeks ago, and I believe the piece of equipment that Westboro has, which is really expensive, is going to be able to go out if somebody has gone into the ice or somebody that's gone into the water. This drone can be immediately sent out to drop inflatable life preservers and other such rescue tools to people, or ropes to people that are stranded, et cetera. So some pretty interesting applications.
Will Sturbridge have eventually 2 drones? I would say there's a 100% certainty it will happen. The question is when, and here's why. I think it's 100% certainty, 2 drones. Technology arises and moves through it, through the society at large. There were police officers before there were cruisers. And then radios were put in cruisers. And then radios were put on officers. And then mace. And then in-car, in-cruiser computers. And then the sidearms, the handguns, went from 38 to 9. Kevlar vests, tasers, combat wound packs. When it develops, it is absorbed into the society and shows itself as applicable in public safety. That's why the only question is when, because it will happen.
Everybody satisfied with the drone discussion? And you have one more here in Betterment, a new booking camera.
Yeah,
Like, the other one is pretty much outdated.
yes, it's not,
Current one.
doesn't talk to our records management system. And we've actually just got a camera off the shelf at the department store. And we're taking digital cameras, digital photographs, and we're trying to download them into our system. And our system doesn't take the photos, it doesn't recognize the photographs, and it puts them in a different location. So the way our records management system is designed, we could do photo arrays with them. In every arrest, in every crime scene that's photographed, those photographs are downloaded, but they're off into a separate area of our records management system. And this camera here is recommended by our records management company, and it's integrated into that system so that everything will be cataloged and stored in the appropriate files and areas, as far as the clarity of it too, for the mug shots.
And that would never leave the public safety complex?
No.
I mean, $4,700 is a very nice digital camera.
It is. I wouldn't want it to leave we have other digital cameras that go out into the field, but this one would be for the booking area.
Well, it begs the question, how much did you pay for the department one and who paid for it? The one you said you bought at the department store.
I believe it was about $200,
Those-
we paid for it out of supplies, but I don't know where that was in the surplus of supplies.
And I think the only other thing, the only thing you have in capital is the simunition guns, is that
Yes.
right? We did talk about those a bit at the Saturday meeting. Did anybody
Yes.
else have questions about that? We did go over those.
No, but were the other questions answered on that? I mean, remember somebody brought the question up, should the ammunitions or simunitions?
That was in front of.
Be part of the expendable, the
Was that
supplies.
resolved?
Well, I
don't
thought we
think so.
thought it should,
But
it could be for the
time-
first year,
For first year, next year.
'Cause you're
it'll
buying
be-
it
We'll put it
sort
into
of
the
as a package.
supplies.
And then
supplies
next year it
account.
would be in part
Because
of
we
the
won't
budget.
have any idea what we're gonna be using for training, so we won't be able to gauge what we're gonna be needing
Well, you
each
need a
year.
replacement for what you
We
get.
may have a surplus next year and
not a
not
big
need
deal.
those in supplies.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was resolved, that it would be,
I don't know if it was resolved.
I don't know if it was resolved, but
But the obvious thing was it comes with the package, and then when you replace it downstream, then it's supplies, but when you get it with the
Right.
original investment, it's part of the capital.
Sure, no, I
Purchase.
get that. I was just
So,
wondering,
it was
like,
just-
how would you even break that out?
Well, when you use up the
I have
ammunition,
Very
you have
similar,
to buy
we
more.
do it, we do it now with our own firearms ammunition.
Yeah.
You know, we do account for that in our budget now, and it's separated out.
Okay.
We would do it very similar to that.
I just have one question related, and it's more, again, a larger scale one, because maybe I wasn't here when it happened. But when did we move from Glock to Smith and Wesson? We were a whole Glock department the last time I knew, and now this is the weapons of
Are
the
they all
township of
Smith and Wessons?
Oh, God, nice one.
Me and Smith Wesson.
Because I would imagine that was a big one-time expense, you would have had to buy everyone the
No,
same
it was,
weapon.
there was no expense.
Oh, it was donated?
No, there was no expense. It was an even trade,
Oh, okay.
no cost. We were contacted by a representative from Smith and Wesson. I wanna say 2014.
Okay, so this gives you better stopping.
2014, 2015, yes, locally made, it's a more durable weapon, something that we found, that we were having trouble with some of the qualifications with people with the smaller hands with the Glock, because the receiver pistol grip side of it, there were some issues with qualifications, and when they introduced the M&P, we were approached by a representative from Smith and Wesson that offered to take those off of our hands at no cost.
Okay.
And provide us with the replacement firearms. I think that the only thing that we had to put in for purchase was the holsters. Replace the holsters and the leather, but that was that was either a capital purchase or some years ago now.
Okay.
I wanna say it was 2014, I don't have that
No, I just happen to know the last time I was aware that the department
Yes.
issue was a Glock, and now it's a Smith & Wesson.
All right, anything else for the chief tonight? Well, thank you.
Great questions.
Thank you
So
very
did I
much,
tell you
Chief.
about having the need for more people yet? So leave it with that then.
That was an hour ago.
I think you're getting back to us on the exact need and
I'm
cost.
putting together
or
another
The
budget.
cost, yes.
Yes. Does that include the officers too, or just the dispatchers?
I would put in your entire manpower.
Be nice to see it all.
It would be nice to see what
Yes.
it is. You know, if you broke it out,
It'll be
it said,
fun.
you know, this part of the officers I think I need, this part of the dispatchers. So they can be evaluated separately and say, okay, you know, because I have no idea what the numbers are, but I'd like to see it broken apart like that.
Yeah, definitely broken apart, just how much for dispatchers, how much for the officers, yeah. Not just under personnel.
Week's end, up next?
He must
Yeah,
have.
that-
We need to work with finance on it.
Yes, I'll have the numbers, I'll have the numbers, but I'll certainly go with Barbara with that before they're done, just so that she can see, because there's the other costs that
Yeah,
are,
I'd
that we
like to
don't
see
know.
it too.
The
Where it comes out.
retirement costs, the healthcare costs. and those-
Yeah.
those numbers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what, if,
'Cause I-
You need to know the full impact.
we don't, yeah, we need to know that.
Oh, we're gonna have a salary and equipment,
Right.
right, okay,
Yeah, no, the
But
full
you have-
impact would be good.
okay. Well, that
Right.
can be effective in the department.
So it was worth discussing.
See that? We're jumping up and down. Well, thank you all for.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, chief. Next,
Come
we
on up, Linda.
have the Board of Health. This is Linda Kokalis, I think y'all know her. She's been around a few times.
So Johnny told me I didn't have to bring a whole lot of stuff, so.
No, because
That's page 33 on your line item, or not line item,
pretty
item,
straightforward.
detail.
I'm having a little trouble seeing tonight, just so you know. I have one contact in.
Oh.
So you're gonna have to read it to me if you could, please.
Did you want to do that? Do you want to quickly do landfill instead first, if that's okay?
Yeah, that might be a quick one for you
Because
guys.
I think it'll be faster and we might be able to get this
Okay.
off. Because I know Kathy, you have a hard stop tonight, correct? For the
Well,
meeting?
I have to leave a little early, Jim will take over.
Oh, okay, okay. I
Okay.
don't want
No,
to.
I don't have a hard, I mean, I would just
Party
leave.
begins.
Oh. Now I have
Well, I don't think Linda wants to be
a
there.
date with New Zealand, put it that way. Which are
Good
few and
news
far
on the landfill
27.
is that in the line, the machine sorry, engineering per
Engineering.
year, right? That number is actually going to be reduced. So that number will now be 9,000
Oh, instead of 11?
instead of 11.
Yeah, I negotiated with the engineering firm. I told them they had to sharpen their pencils.
Oh,
Thank you for that.
I tried where it can help.
And I think, I don't think there was any other strange thing unless.
Can I just
anyone
expand
else-
on that just a
Sure.
little bit? As soon as we can hire a new agent, one of the first tasks that we're going to do, which will probably further reduce that number, is go to the DEP, basically file modification, a minor modification to our current permit, which would allow us to do less inspections at the landfill and recycling center. But that number, the 9,000, is for the entire year. But since it's 6 times a year, we only pay them as they do the inspection. So hopefully, if we could do the minor modification to our existing permit, that number would be further reduced.
Great.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a good.
But I can't guarantee that the DEP will do it, but most likely they will. And how quickly, I'm not sure.
now, does I guess recycling is somewhat crashing. Is that going to affect your budget?
It may. So right now, it's basically where it's at we used to make a lot of, not a lot of money, but we used to make money on the recycling. Right now, it's like becoming a wash. We're looking at, we didn't put it into the capital budget, but we're looking at buying a, I probably won't say the word right, but something to crush the glass more finely so that we won't have to haul it away to get rid of it. We could actually start using it as part of our daily cover
Oh,
material. But I want to kind of see the cost. We're looking at used ones right now. We want to look at the cost of it and then try to figure out, like, at what point do we break even where we're actually saving money? So we need to see what the cost of hauling it away versus using it as part of our daily cover, or not, yeah, it's daily cover, but it's once a week cover for us. The only other area that might change is the cover material that we do use at the landfill. Apparently, we were getting a lot of that from the DPW. They were using it when they sanded the streets. But then they went to just basically, I guess, salt or something for the streets. So we were receiving a lot of their stuff, so now they're not purchasing as much, so
Oh.
we might have to purchase some more of our cover material, but that's the only thing.
Did anyone have any other questions? Because we can probably vote on it. If not,
do you have the lower number?
I do.
Here?
I do. For the total purchase of services, it's 156, 160.
I guess we could have done that pretty easily, couldn't we?
Oh.
I mean, it's only 2,000 left.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but I had to use a calculator.
Oh, gee. So it would be,
Department's total is 278, 855.
Second.
wait a minute, I have to get to it.
Oh, wait a second, I didn't actually put in a motion.
Oh, I thought you sounded like one.
Wait a minute,
Well, I move that motion then.
Okay.
wait a minute, what line items are those?
So it's
98,
lines,
99, 100,
Thank you.
in the existing package.
Yes, I get that. I do get that. So are you putting that in a form of motion now?
yes, please.
So it's 278, 855. Is there a second?
I've already
Did you second it? I know I'm behind here. Any discussion at all? Further discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
All right. Did you want, all right, Linda, inspectors we can hit real quick? Page 27, main tab. Just the tuition reimbursement went up. I think we talked about that, right?
Right.
Where are you?
Page 27?
Where's tuition reimbursement?
It's
Oh,
training
sorry.
recertification under purchase of services.
Wait a minute, it's not page 27, it's,
It is.
Isn't it?
it is?
Yeah, but
It is.
there's no-
I thought that
it
was
says
electrical
training
and plumbing.
Is it?
Inspectors.
I thought that was under, I thought the building
Oh,
inspector
maybe
did
that is
that.
not the health one.
Where's the health inspector?
That's,
Isn't
they
this
call
the-
that
am I in the wrong
inspections
one?
and testing.
Yeah, that's
I don't have
electrical
it.
and plumbing.
Yeah,
So where's inspections? Or maybe it's buried inside of the actual Board of Health budget itself, Joni.
Maybe it is.
because we've done the electrical with the,
I
when,
thought,
Yeah.
I think it is, it's definitely separated out, Joni.
Okay, then that was my note and my bad.
Oh, there it is, yeah, public health inspectors in there, yeah.
So Linda, I did have a question on this, and I think I figured it out, but the salary from last year
For which
was
one?
for department head.
The department head, okay?
It was between steps on the scale. So all you did was take it to the full step and then increase it by the 3% for the adjustment for the cost of
Wow.
living? Because that's how it works when I look at last year's scale.
Are you looking
That
at the
makes
Board
It's
of
like
total
Health?
two and
sense.
three, step two, step three, and the salary that's there from last year was like right in the middle, or closer to three, but it wasn't on one of the numbers.
Okay.
So it looks like it got brought to the number, maybe Barbara did that, it got brought to the number, and then increased the 3% for the cost of living for the
For the following year, from the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
fiscal year.
Right, so that's how,
So, yeah, so it's almost like fixing
It's
the
almost the
issues
same
we
as how we
had.
fixed,
building
Nelson's
inspector.
that time, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a similar situation.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the agent salary?
yeah.
Yes, department head salary.
So that's,
So you know it's empty,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay.
but it
So-
depends on where the person comes in. There's an interim in there right now. isn't
no, we
No,
have
there's
no
no-
interim. We have
Completely?
nobody. You're
No.
looking at her.
there? So it's a step 3, is what this is.
So, remember when Bree left, so Bree, I understand what you just explained. She left, well, yeah, well, she was brandy new, I think it was her first
Yeah, she was-
really.
She
so
was fairly new,
She was
yeah.
brought in at a much lower pay. Previous to her, that position was much higher.
Because look at,
$72,000.
at 18, it was 72.
So, part of the dilemma is, you know, finding a person at the moment, and I know that there's a candidate that is being interviewed and would like to be considered, but the salary is an issue.
I would say the salary is,
It's way low.
Jeff makes that decision, but if it's, even if, at this rate, if you get someone who's qualified, and got more experience, then that becomes a negotiated point anyway.
So I can tell you where we are in the process right now. We've done all the final interview. We're completely finished. I'm ready to basically make an offer tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. That's what we told him that we would do. I know what the person's their current salary is right now, and this is below that salary. Okay? So I already had someone reject an offer that was based on this level of salary. So like I said, the 60 grand kind of seemed like a arbitrary number. I'm not sure how it happened, but maybe you're right on how.
That's how it got calculated.
But the salary
probably.
range for the position is up to like 81,000 something. So
I think
like-
that's what it was I looked at
Right,
the
so-
advertisement
Right,
today.
so what we
yesterday.
advertised it in the Mass Association of.
MMA.
Yeah, on
Job
MOA
board.
and also on our town website.
Oh, that's where I looked on the town
Yeah,
website.
it's the same exact one. It's like from 50-some thousand up to 81,000.
It was a big range.
It is a large range, and the person that we interviewed has 18 years' experience. They currently are doing all the Title V work currently in another town, so they're qualified to do that. That's something that we did have a hard time finding a person to be able to fill that role doing that as well.
On our current scale, the maximum is $84,000. So I'm just saying that's
That's what you have, yeah, so.
what's on this
yeah.
scale, the adjusted one for the upcoming
Oh,
year.
do you have the little?
It's last year, so you gotta add 3% to all these rates.
But I guess the other issue that Linda's coming across is, you know, a qualified individual. Remember, the inspector or the interim that we had was not doing Title Vs.
Oh, no,
right?
she was.
So
The-
she was only doing Title Vs?
Yeah, the interim was doing Title V and doing whatever else we needed
Okay,
to, but
the
it was very
previous one-
part-time.
The previous one had it split, right? Where some of the functions she was not doing, so she was kind of giving it more to the inspectors, is that right?
No, so we only had an interim after Alyssa left, and then after Bree had left. So it was the same exact interim who was doing Title V for us, and some of the other emergencies and things that pop up in town. But she was very part-time, so we turned money back too in the last few years. A lot of money actually was turned back in that area.
Right, okay, but this person, so the point I would like to make is this person does all of the functions currently for another town, nearby town.
Correct.
Happy to do this, but you're also you're finding a shortage of qualified health agents.
Yeah, so this is
across
kind
the
of a
board,
thing that's
right.
going on throughout the state. There is a limited source of agents out there. We've called all the other towns that have advertisements out there, and we're saying, hey, are you guys having any problems? Because we were starting to have a little bit of an inferiority complex about why people didn't want to apply in Sturbridge. So we started calling around, and we found out they were having the same issues, that they were not getting qualified people either. And besides that, there's also quite a few people retiring, and a lot of other towns have Title V parsed out to somebody else, opposed to an agent has one function, and then they have a Title V, basically, agent doing that function. That's what I had proposed to do last year. And, for instance, in Charlton, their agent doesn't do Title V, so they have to have someone else that does all their Title V.
Contractor, all that stuff out.
Yeah, so a lot
Does
of
stuff.
towns do that, and one of the contractors that basically did that for a lot of the towns had actually passed away this past year. So it made it even a lot harder to find people, because now all of these other towns are in a bind trying to find someone to do their Title V work. So it's a snowball situation that we're in right
I
now.
looked up the salary for the health agent in Charlton and saw what it was, and then I dug deeper. You could see that health agent was only doing a fraction of what a full-blown health agent would do, because they, for what you just said, they were contracting out all this other stuff.
He also
And
does
doing
not,
Inspections too, I think, for like,
he does a lot, he does all of the inspections, I know that, for the Board of Health in Charlton. However, I don't believe he's also full-time, because he's also a retired
Okay.
fireman, so I think he could only make so much money additional. I know, for instance, in Southbridge, I know that that's at past 90,000. There's a town that we contacted who had an interview, they were ready to hire the person, and they were offering the individual 90,000, and they turned it down, so it's just to give you kind of a,
And we kind of fell into this with, I don't know if it was the town accountant that I know we had a hard time with for a similar situation, or maybe it was even the IT.
No, I know we had a hard time finding a town accountant
Yeah.
whenever.
I think this is part of the emphasis, the need for the study that's gonna happen
Study that-
Right.
yes.
to figure out what, if our
Compensation
grid
study.
works.
Sure.
yeah, it's been, I think you have to look at it, my own personal opinion, only because of what we've gone through. Inspectors are kind of a different breed than the agent. An inspector, we have trained inspectors, we've brought people in, and we're like, we're willing to give you the training if you're the right fit. But for the agent position, it's just like having a fire chief it's a real department head, and we're part of the emergency management. I have to have someone that knows this stuff. It's hard to get a person out of college. We've gotten some college resumes, but I'm like, I can't have someone in charge of people that actually know more than they do. You know, it's a really tough situation. So I've personally made phone calls trying to recruit people. I did recruit people that we interviewed, and it just seemed like they did fine in one interview, the second interview, they kind of bombed. So just to give you an example, it's not for lack of trying. We didn't hire a search company to help us, so
Save money there.
we saved money there. And this individual that I said that we would like to hire also did let me know that they would not be interested in taking any of our insurance benefits,
Oh.
since their spouse's benefits
Yes.
are very good. I don't know if that,
I don't know, I mean, this would be more.
I think she
don't-
still has to budget for it.
Exactly, I don't
Has to
think
be
we
budgeted.
cannot budget for it, I think it has to be there just in case.
She still has to budget for that. But it's a good information, to have. And
so
Well, I thought she budgeted by the number that she knew,
there would be enough money.
in the health insurance line.
Well, she actually adds, usually she
She
adds
adds a
two
couple,
full
maybe.
families and 4 individuals.
For a cushion, but if she actually knew that person was not taking it, I mean, she still has the cushion, but if she has that
but
person
you know it's
in
gonna
the
come
account.
back.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be spent, so.
Yeah, but then you don't, I mean, we're not talking pennies here, we're talking
No,
quite a bit of money for the
Lifestyle.
So you
insurance.
used a headhunter and you got no results from it?
No, they didn't
No,
use her.
Linda Kokalis is the headhunter.
Oh.
I actually used a company I work with, resume database. I started doing my own recruiting and calling people, and
Oh, wow.
it was, I do recruiting too, so But it was really, I mean, unless we're gonna bring people in from out of state, and then you're talking about our regulations versus.
Yeah, that's sometimes tough to make that
It's
transition.
a whole other ball game there.
Present company accepted, of
Yeah.
course.
This person knows the area, is in the area, you know.
They also, because I said, look, you know, after the last experience that we had with someone that only stayed 6 months, we're a little concerned what your goal is, your long-term goals.
Right.
And they really do want to, basically, they said retire here. They would like to keep this job until retirement.
How close are they to retirement now?
The person's,
They're in their 40s, right? I believe you said?
yes, they are,
Well, they're not that
they're
close.
under,
I don't
they're
think we're
under
allowed to
50 and over
Offer
45,
them a
so.
position.
Well, that's her best guess of what the person
They're under
looks like.
49.
You don't want someone that's gonna retire next week.
No,
Keep
no,
working
they-
for another
no.
15 years. Well, on duty, and stay for another 15 years, yeah.
So he's very interested, and he's very also knowledgeable about landfills, recycling centers, capping them, the whole gamut. And I said, your first task is gonna be to reduce the amount of inspections that we need
So you're
there,
gonna
so
offer
that
him
we
a
could
job
save
tomorrow?
money.
Oh.
Yeah, I want.
So we have a
'Cause
couple of things, right, we have to talk to, you know, both Barbara and
Yeah.
Jeff.
Barbara's been out for the last 2 days.
Yeah,
She's been
she's
out
out sick.
sick, so we were texting back and forth,
Yeah, but Jeff's right here.
and Jeff's right here, so. There is enough money in this year's budget to.
Yeah, I would think, I just actually looked, I think there's still
I think there's.
33,000 from what Chris
That-
sent us last week or the week before.
Yeah, we didn't get it this week, did we? I sent him. a
No, I
quick
haven't
email.
yet.
I have it here somewhere.
But I have I think that was last week's, and I just looked, it was 33,000 left in that salary.
The other thing that we did do, because I have to say, my staff has been fantastic. So when Bree's last day was the first day of my inspector starting. So my inspector has been going without a supervisor, you might want to say, or someone to bounce off stuff this entire time, and she's been here 6 months and doing a fantastic job. And Erin has taken on a lot more responsibility than an administrative assistant. And she's only works 25 hours a week. So she's taken on a huge role and has done a phenomenal job on getting our permits out in January, you know, everything like that. She's on top of everything, and including helping us put together our budget and everything else. Erin did that. So she's done a phenomenal job. But I'm afraid that if I don't have somebody in there, I will have mutiny. Because I think they're playing roles that they're really actually not being compensated for. So,
I imagine that's tough to do on a long-term basis.
it has been going on for quite a while, though, so it's kind of, and Erin started, you know, she hasn't been here that long
She
either.
hasn't been here all that long either, has she?
No, so, but she's picked up on everything, and she's done a phenomenal job.
So the only line item in question out of the
Really,
three
is this-
things here, Board of Health, Community Health, and Inspections and Testing, is the department head salary.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So I'm okay to move those motions, but I'm not going to do the,
Well, you could move them all, and you could always reconsider if you actually get a number.
I mean, I'm okay to do that as well. It's okay, but it is going to change, you know, so it's up to you.
I think it sounds like the
is
department
gonna
head
change.
salary
It's
does have
not-
to change.
yeah.
Do you want to know what the offer would be? Would that help you guys at all?
Well, I think we'd want to wait to hear from Barbara and
Jeff.
Jeff.
Jeff needs to weigh in on it, too. It is a hiring.
I mean,
Yes.
well, just to give you a ballpark figure, I don't think we're not looking at more than 10 grand. I think we're only looking at like 6 or 7 or 8
But still.
additional. I know. That's why I don't think if it's okay with you guys, I'll just forget that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I leave out 101, just don't do
Yeah,
101.
and I'm okay to do the rest.
Yep.
Is there any questions on any of the rest? I mean, let's not neglect that if anybody has questions. I don't think
yeah, I
much
did.
changed.
They're all on page
Perfect.
33.
Yeah, 33, yes.
The tuition reimbursement,
Oh,
who's
that's
that
new.
for?
That's for the, that would be for the agent and also for the inspector.
Okay. And what is that for? What type of education is that?
The one is, I don't know how it's broken down. Does it say just tuition?
It just says tuition reimbursement, 2,500.
Okay, I think that the inspector had actually talked about going to school to get their, say their AA or whatever it would be, to finish up school. Because I believe, I thought that used to be in the budget for the town administrator or something for tuition reimbursement. Anyway, they wanted the option to be able to go to school and get tuition reimbursement. I think it's $2,500. They haven't started to do that or anything. But the other stuff is actually for other classes too. It may include also going for your RS. This person does not have an RS. They're not a
Registered
registered
sanitarian.
sanitarian. They have all the other qualifications to do Title V and stuff, but that's one of the requisites that we made, that we said that they have to have within the year.
Linda, is there an agreement that if an individual, say, does, in this instance as an example for across the board, obtains the RS, is there an agreement that the individual will remain in the position here for an agreed-upon period of time, and if they don't, they have to
Reimburse.
refund
Yeah,
in full to the town?
we plan to do that. We plan to do that this time. I'm just not sure how legally to word it, so that's
No, I
something
think
that.
you can absolutely do that.
It's
if
gonna
you're
be in
being
the
reimbursed.
contract. that you-
Yeah.
Right, in the offer letter, we'll put that in there. It'll definitely be in there because I don't want to get burned again. but-
Right, somebody becomes sort of a bumblebee, and they, you know, they get it here and off they go.
Right, and I have to say, I have actually tried to steal from other towns too.
Oh, but that's
Once,
okay.
once they get trained, I've been trying to. And I did help someone get a nice raise since I.
Is that
they-
your conscience speaking?
They countered me twice, and another town countered me twice on a person that we
Oh, wow.
made two
To
offers
Larry's
to.
recommendation, it's a good idea to put it in there, but good
Yeah.
luck trying to get the money back.
Well,
I did hear how what you are supposed to do is actually withhold their last paycheck till they, they have to reimburse you or something. I did find that out from a labor attorney.
But even in companies internally, you know that,
Isn't there a delay in the paycheck?
Oh, sure, you always get paid in arrears, you get paid the following week.
Usually it's a
You're
time.
dealing with Maura Healy.
I don't think so. I think it's quite okay if it's in the country, but we digress.
Yes.
I know it was in my employment contract when
Well,
I
it
signed
was
it.
in mine as well, so.
I'm not sure
I
you
was-
can garnish the last paycheck for that reason.
If you leave within a certain amount of
Yeah,
time and
it's
they
always
pay
based
for
on the
your
time.
education.
You have an obligation to pay it back, you have a contractual obligation to pay it back, but I'm not sure, and say you can't, I'm not sure you can garnish the last paycheck to gather your
Yeah, that would-
reimbursement in that manner. I don't believe you can, but I'm not sure. Jeff, you may know.
Done that by town council.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
you might get into a wages and hours issue.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the method of separation, voluntary separation versus the termination. Those are, you're supposed to pay out.
At termination, there's certain different laws, and if he just
Termination,
said.
you have to pay them the day they terminate.
That's right.
Yes.
I think that before any reimbursement is actually agreed to, even though it's in the budget, and if somebody wants to use it, I think they actually should sign something that says that they agree to stay with us for the next 10 years. No.
Well, I was
Oh,
thinking-
whoa.
I was thinking
No,
6
kidding.
months to a year.
But I would say,
So the Air
well,
Force
you
does
know,
pilots.
people can get a lot of certifications in a year too, and the thing, the reason that is also in a line item is because a lot of the RS folks, they actually have to keep so many continuing hours. So, yeah, they have to keep their credits up, so we have to send them to things so that they can continue their education.
Right.
Well, we're seeing the tuition line item in other budgets this year,
Right.
so
No big deal.
I think it's
Training is all part of the job.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Did anyone else have any questions? Because I can move it. Okay.
Did you guys put our stipend in there this year?
A what?
I'm kidding. The stipend for the Board of Health?
No,
Okay. I was just wondering if that
that's
went
an
in.
unequivocal no.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion, or I make the motion, to approve lines 102, 103, and 104. Of 11,411?
Yeah, I guess that's right, yes.
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor? 7-0, thank you.
Did you get the drone in? Board of Health. Chief Ford, I feel really bad. He actually didn't mention that the Board of Health also needed to use that.
He did.
He did.
Right.
He did.
So,
And I have a quick question about the
drone?
No, the landfill.
Oh.
The impact on that neighborhood and where we stand with that.
The
Right.
McGilpin Road,
Yeah,
Oh, McGilpin Road.
is that what you meant?
that's what I meant.
Okay, so far I do know that the state was still investigating the lead, and they are still working with GIS on trying to map the best place to actually put a
Monitoring well.
monitoring well, correct, yeah. As far as putting a water line and all of that, I do know that it went to the town administrator's office, something from this, I think they got grant money to do a study on the cost or something.
They did the study, yeah.
Yeah, so,
They did?
Yeah.
yeah.
They did, oh,
The scuttlebutt is for there's 65 houses on the,
on the
on
whole
the
whole
circle.
McGilpin Road?
And it would be $135,000 in betterment for each household in order to put the water line in.
Oh, my.
So that's a lot of money. So the
Whoa,
big fight
I'm
would be this. The state had worked with the,
It's a huge betterment.
the feds to come out and actually do more water testing. And that was last year. We all individually got our own results. And they're saying they're not finding lead now. Now, whether or not it was an anomaly of how it was done, the way DEP did it, or whether or not the lead is now at Kevin's house, that it passed by, we're not really sure. So, right now, I don't know if it's as much of a public health emergency as we actually looked at it. I think it's important for us to continue to monitor these houses and these wells to see if other things start showing up, like that happened in Charlton.
Now, they didn't show lead in Charlton. They showed a number of other things, but there was no lead.
They did actually show lead. They don't test for lead in Charlton. See, that's,
They
they
did at
don't.
my daughter's house. She's been getting free water for the last 3 years, and she's got a line
They-
coming up the
they-
street.
Let me explain. They actually test, but not the heavy metal testing. They don't do except once every 3 years to those houses. There was one house that actually did get a hit that was an exceedance. That's actually closer to the McGilpin Road area.
It's that side of the landfill.
Closer,
Which is
yeah.
the oldest part of the landfill. by the
Right,
way.
so there was one that was closer to Berry Corner Road
Yep.
that actually had an exceedance of lead a couple of times. But Casella's not required to do heavy metal testing at those houses.
How
So they
close is
were not
Berry
doing
Corner
that.
Road to McGilpin?
Pardon me?
How close is Berry Corner Road to McGilpin?
As a crow flies, like, very close.
Okay, because they just ran the water line up Berry Corner Road.
Right. So that's, there's Old Berry Corner Road and Berry Corner
Yeah.
Road. So, yeah, so there's two Berry Corner Roads. I'm not sure
That's
who
close
owns
to
it, too.
McGilpin?
Yeah, it is. It's on the other
Walk
end.
through the woods and get there, I think.
Oh, really?
But you guys do know that the money also that was spent last year, that we probably turned back some of that money too, for the legal.
I was
And,
surprised you didn't need it.
well, we, worked very hard to minimize how much money we spent in that, because we weren't sure if we were gonna have to go to a full site assignment type of situation, which would have cost a lot more. So it's hard to go to you guys for so much money all over and over again. So we tried to be very conservative in how we spent it. We also used some of the money out of the revolving fund that I have under health emergency when we start doing testing and some of the things that we were doing, working with the hydrogeologist. So, and you guys, that was a fantastic thing that you did because that really tipped the scales for us to really win that.
But is DEP in our favor? Are they leaning in our direction, or are they just keeping us at arm's length?
As far as,
As far as giving credence to what we're finding?
I would say that they are probably trying to investigate it from their side. I would say that they would probably not want to say that the landfill has anything to do with what's going on here. There's other studies in the state, I know, also that's studying lead in the water, in groundwater. So that's another thing.
So,
They're not making a commitment either way yet.
No, and the only way that I think, kind of similar to what happened in Charlton, is if that landfill was blamed for contaminating the water on McGilpin Road, that's how it would get paid for to have you, the,
Yeah, because they paid half the cost of that project.
well, I have a bigger, I mean, I don't know if you were on the Board of Health when this happened, but there was I don't know, in some period of time when I was on the Finance Committee, a big rush of Title V things, right? When the law changed, and the state had put aside a pile of money, and they were offering people who had failed the Title V inspections, interest-free loans for a period of 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
I do remember.
okay, so did the town explore that with this whole problem down there? I mean, instead of spending I forget what the number was, it's a very large number for the water line. Why not invest in an a banking not a banking but put aside a pool of money that would be available for all these homeowners to borrow, because I believe that the state's already specified for the people in Charlton what the kit to treat their water has to be, to put that same kit in all these homes that could possibly be affected. So, I mean, it's like $6,000 a house to put this kit in there. So if you gave them a 3-year interest-free loan for $6,000 to put this stuff in there, we would solve the problem without having to figure out how we're gonna pay, $6 or $8 million to put just a single water line around in a loop and hit everyone.
That's just to go around the loop, too. That's
Yeah.
not to go to the house.
Right.
That's not to go to the house?
No, that's $135,000 per household just for the water line.
And a lot of those houses are,
35,000 is the total.
wow.
Yeah, it's some huge,
That's 65.
it's a big number.
There are other programs, Kevin, that actually are through the EPA, and the state probably is working through the EPA for people to have, like, who have contaminated groundwater in order to get water.
Right.
So, but they don't actually even pay for it. It's actually like a grant
But
that
if the
they actually get.
town's looking to solve the problem quickly and easily for people who may be affected, I'm just asking if this has been explored.
No, but that's a good idea. But
It's a hell of a lot easier for people to digest that number than it is
the
losing
program
half
that
their
you're
home
talking
value.
about for the Title V thing, actually, I brought that up to Barbara this is going back a few years ago, because it was like the town had to hold the money or something. Like, we became almost like a bank.
No, exactly.
Yeah, we became like a bank, the town. And I think when I mentioned it about Title V, for instance, because we had a lot of failed Title V, and people then would say they don't have the money to fix their septic system.
Right.
And so then they wouldn't fix their septic system until they sold their house. It became a problem, but it had something to do with the accounting and everything else. I mean, I think I don't want to say it would be a nightmare for those guys, but I think they didn't want
No,
to get
it-
into the business of becoming a
Yeah,
bank.
There's a lot there. I'm just wondering if if that avenue was explored, because there seemed to have been a big push for the water line, but the water line has turned out to be quite an exorbitant expense.
Yeah. No, but thanks. Maybe we should explore that.
3 days.
Any other landfill questions?
So you had community health?
That was
That was
in
part
the,
of that.
That was part of the budget.
Yeah, it was.
No, it's not. You only voted lines 102 to 104 for 11,411.
I think you're right.
105 is
Oh,
community
yes.
health.
Oh, sorry.
think
You're
106.
right, it's separated, thank you.
It's on the
Kathy.
detail, it's in the
It's all in
detail,
one
though. It's all in
page.
I
one.
know, I knew,
You're right.
see, I knew there was something off, but yes, I don't know why it's in there. Hang on, let me just get it.
It's $4,000, line 105.
Well, then, make the motion to approve line 105
Second.
for $4,000.
Any discussion? That's been level funded for years. All in favor?
Oh, sorry.
7-0. Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks,
catching
Kevin.
that.
Yeah, no, I assumed it was in there, sorry.
No, I did too, because it was in that line, in the detail. Yeah.
Why is it separated
To confuse us.
now?
on this?
Because these have always been the traditional buckets,
it's
and they have
done.
different accounts.
Oh, so it's a valid.
Oh, we have to do,
Gonna do
the
106 now?
public health
You have
inspector
to-
too, then.
yes, exactly.
106.
$46,091.
I make that motion?
Second.
All in favor? 7-0. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
It's all those years of,
Yeah, it's just programmed, it's muscle memory.
On the community health, if you guys recall, Kevin, I know you were here, when we left, we actually used to be part of Harrington. We had Harrington doing it. It was the best thing that we did by actually doing our own program, by doing, or having our own public health nurse, because Harrington is no longer doing it for any of the communities. And in fact, the person I'm trying to hire, their community now has no public health nurse or anything. And all of these other towns that were part of the Harrington group are all struggling, trying to find somebody, scrambling for a public health nurse.
have we had any issues with the measles and all that stuff that other town, or areas of the country have? Measles
Yeah,
and
I'm
chicken
leaving.
pox, right? You're not
No,
aware?
no, no. The
I mean, we would
measles-
know that, wouldn't we, through like the community nurse health?
Yeah, we get notified by, it
By
comes
the doc-
over to us, yeah.
Yeah.
We get notified for all the communicable diseases, or, for instance, I'll just give you an example. If somebody went to eat in a restaurant in town, even though they don't live in town, and they
Oh, it got,
went
food poisoning or
to
something.
a restaurant here, and they believe that they contracted hepatitis A,
oh,
we have to investigate that.
oh.
Okay, even though they don't live in our town, but it's because of.
It happened in
We
town.
also have to figure out if there's anything going on. And that's actually a case that happened here, yeah.
Linda,
But we don't believe it happened from here.
Oh,
Linda, I think everybody knows just from following the news that measles is making something of a comeback. A part of New York City is now under mandatory, and that's not inoculation, well, a shot. Let's just, well, two questions. One, have there been any confirmed cases in the state?
Of measles, not that I'm aware of.
And the second is, if that happens, is there a
Protocol.
standard operating, protocol for,
We would probably take our cue from Department of Public Health. Department of Public Health would work with us, and we would start to figure out, we have a really good school nurses in the school system. We know who's been vaccinated, who hasn't been vaccinated. The cases that are going on in New York are in a small pocket of a community who apparently really did not want to inoculate, vaccinate their children. And it came from overseas. People traveled overseas where it was very hot, came back into the States, and then spread it amongst other school-age children. So it's really important in our communities. Our communities, a lot of people watch television, they hear the radio and things like that. It predominantly happens in populations that actually are like an Amish population or populations like that. This is where they have seen high measles outbreaks in those type of populations. And in the area in Brooklyn where the people, they don't want to
It was, I think it was for
vaccinate their
religious
children.
purposes or something. It was
Pardon me?
against their religious practice or something?
It's not really, because there's other rabbis and things that say that that's not true. I think it's the fear that people think that their children will get autism if they get vaccinated. The magic number, they call it the herd mentality, the herd type thing. It's 95% of the population. So if 95% of the population has been vaccinated, then they protect the other 5% of the population that either are too young to get vaccinated or have compromised immune systems and they can't be
They
vaccinated.
can't be vaccinated.
Yeah, so there are people that can't, like the really, like little babies can't. So,
We have so many travelers, and the measles stays in the air for many hours,
2 hours.
and, well, at least, yes.
Yeah.
So somebody just goes into a bank, they're passing through, they say, oh, there's a bank, oh, good, and they stick their nose in.
Right.
And then, all of a sudden, it's in town.
So how I've looked at some of the states that were affected, like New York, New Jersey, what they have done on their state website, bless you.
Bless you.
Too.
What they have done on their state website is actually saying, people that have been in this restaurant between these dates, please go see your public health person. They're also telling people that if they think they have any type of symptoms, to contact their doctor or the hospital prior to going there, because they probably want to, bless you, quarantine you in an area so that you're not affecting all the other patients. So it's highly, highly, highly contagious. And it's,
Yeah. And the irony is that if you go to the ER, which is a sensible thing to do, it would seem, there's no emergency room that is a clean room, which is a particular engineering term, I think. So all of a sudden, the ER itself is
becomes a
focal-
contaminated. So that's some of the stuff that we would practice going through some of the emergency management stuff. So this is part of the stuff that we would do with MEMA. We would work with, we're part of TRIAFIC, which Harrington was
Right.
part of. I don't know if we've actually gone through any of those protocols, but they would have a set of protocols for dealing with an outbreak for contagious diseases.
I gotta get this back on there because you're gonna love this. Someone just texted me and told me that measles was discovered in Massachusetts 2 days ago.
Oh, well.
Oh,
see,
wow.
I wasn't up on the news, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just curious. I gotta see if I can get
So
back
they're
to it.
texting you because they're listening to me? Oh,
Reading,
no.
yeah. One of us.
Googling it while I'm talking, sorry.
All right. Let's see.
five
So the
people
6
watching
communities
this
are
meeting.
Dartmouth, Plymouth, Waltham, Framingham, Hyannis, and Braintree.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh,
So-
my.
Sorry. Well, they're not in Sturbridge, I know that.
I have a question about the parents taking exceptions to vaccination policies at the schools. Do we track that number of vaccinations? And if so, or is it on the rise?
I actually don't know. That would be something that we could probably talk to the school about.
School nurse.
I think it would be interesting to see if
School
our
nurse.
community is following some
It
national
generally-
trends.
I will have to say, it generally has been kind of, see, you're gonna have all the kids traveling this coming week or whatever. So people are gonna travel, and I have to say, I mean, not everybody is a fan of vaccinations, but they do work. I have to say, they do
Well, we might be
work.
able to ask.
I mean, it was
Education's coming on
basically
Tuesday. They may know.
eradicated out of our country,
I'd be interested
until
to
recently.
know. Yeah.
so it's
Everything in
it's dangerous.
It's my motto.
So it is a concern, but thanks for the update on that. I'll have to check it out.
It's nice to know someone's listening. Yes.
Well, it's kind of scary.
Thank
so,
you.
Well, I think it is somewhat in the news, so maybe it
Yeah.
made somebody perk up. I don't know.
It's in the news pretty much every day.
It has been in the news a lot, yeah.
I said not that I was aware of. I definitely know they're
I
not in
wasn't aware. I
Sturbridge.
didn't think-
They're not in Sturbridge because we would have been notified of the
Right.
Sturbridge stuff.
Yeah. Anything else?
The
for-
measles, just so you know, the measles would wipe out that $4,000 budget,
Oh, yeah.
just so you know.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, great.
If I had to call in. And right now, that's why I have to get a health agent in here, so that they can start going to all these meetings that I can't attend or we're
Right.
not being a part of.
All right, well, thank you for coming in.
Great, thank you guys, thanks.
We'll stay in touch on the salary.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. What else do we have here? Anything else on the 2020 budgets?
Well, I wait for education to come. so
Well,
that'll be
yes.
Tuesday.
That's Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing on Tuesday.
So what I'd like to do on Tuesday, Kath, if that's okay, I didn't actually have time to do all of it tonight, but since we made adjustments to the
Oh,
file, perhaps at the beginning or the end of next
Right.
meeting, we can actually go through each line item with me live and make sure that we are
Yeah.
all in agreement of
Yeah.
the amounts.
well, we only have education on Tuesday, so I think we might be able to do that Tuesday if you're ready to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Education should be done in 5 minutes.
Oh, I don't know about that, but you don't know.
What time is your hard stop tonight?
I what?
You said, someone mentioned that you have to.
No, I have to leave, but Jim is the vice
Well,
chair.
I
have to leave in about 5 minutes, yeah, actually.
In old business, I wanted to bring up that whole discussion about us putting funds into the building accounts for
Oh, right.
expenses that may or may not occur when we have a reserve fund, but I'd rather just wait till we have,
And also,
or not.
Barbara has not gone back to Jared because she's been out
She's
sick.
been sick.
He did email her.
Oh,
He
okay.
copied me, yes.
Oh,
He had a
okay.
bunch of questions that we had from the other night, and we haven't heard back.
So I do have a lot of points, you know, we're going to
Yeah.
discuss, but I'd rather do it when most of us are gonna be, and I don't want you to walk out in the middle of it, so.
Right, right. No, I just,
We'll hold off on that, but
I know.
I expect that,
Usually
that'll be a
somebody-
good night on the education night, because that's another philosophical discussion.
Right, right. Yeah. So I do have to leave. I mean, you can continue on and you can do those minutes.
We have minutes to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I read them.
And now that Jim is here,
I read them, and I wouldn't,
Everybody here read
good
them as
with
well, right?
I didn't find anything in those minutes that I
Oh,
would.
questions.
No, I have a response to provide for the
yes, well, why don't you come up?
Yes.
I'll stay for that. I can be a little late. It's afternoon, it's tomorrow afternoon in New Zealand. It's not like she's staying up late.
It's summertime, she's probably sitting on
No,
the
it's
beach.
not.
Come in, Linda.
It's fall.
Talk to you later.
Oh, okay, it's fall. It's not winter.
Thanks. They're leaving before winter. They're coming back, they're cheating winter again.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead.
I was asked about my opinion or my opinion on a new position in the library for 10 hours.
Right.
I'm not at the point, at this late stage in the game to add positions to the budget. So that would be universal, not just that department.
That's
Okay,
a good,
wait,
that's
were
a
you
good
still here?
response.
Where are we with the approval of the warrant articles and us getting a copy of the warrant?
They reviewed those last evening. Most of them are done. We do have some conflict over the warrant articles for a recreation program, not a program, but recreation improvements, ball fields, and the senior center. So those two will have to be well, there's 6 warrant articles, or 5 or 6 warrant articles addressing those 2 items. So we'll be meeting next week with our engineer and the seniors and the rec program to figure out which articles will go on the warrant.
In the past, it wouldn't have been unusual to put all 3 of them on there and just put them in the right
Well,
order.
there's 6.
Oh, I thought there were 3 per topic, there's 6 in total?
Yeah, it's very confusing, and they cover multiple properties, and
That's not
so we
good.
wanna get it straightened out. The Board of Selectmen spent over an hour on those alone last night.
My personal recommendation is it would be best if there's things they're very important about, to split them off into separate parcels so people can pick and choose instead of saying it's an all or nothing article, you know.
It's more complicated,
Is it?
because there's joint proposals, there's separate proposals, there's overlapping proposals,
Okay.
so, like I said, we're meeting next week to try to figure it out. And
I'm gonna see if I can rearrange Tuesday, and maybe I can get there.
Can you just give us a ballpark as to the number of articles on the warrant?
57?
Wow,
57.
Ouch.
that's a big number.
See, I have the drafts.
That's slightly more than
Wow.
What were you?
That's a big number.
Or does that include the special?
Yeah, does it include
Yeah, that
special?
includes the special.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
So
But still, that's,
it does seem large. Wow.
that also includes the 6 for the senior center and the rec.
Oh,
center. I
okay.
mean, those will get boiled down.
Those get
to
sorted
fewer.
out, yeah.
So on the annual,
Electronic voting will come in handy.
right now, today, there's 50. So you gotta figure 5 or 6 of those are the rec ones, so you're gonna weed off a couple of those.
So we're somewhere in the high 40s by the
High
time.
40s, and then there's 1, 2,
Oh, there's not too many there.
5, 6 for the special.
Oh,
So, just, let's just say there's 50 of them. Just, I'm just, keep in mind that, you know, some of these might be lengthy debates even here, and we'll need to bring in
right.
people to talk about them.
Trying to see
So-
what we had last year.
Yeah, it's, just make sure when you program out the meetings that people aren't thinking they're 2 hours long and leaving.
Good tonight.
We had 33 on the regular warrant last year. Wow.
Yeah, there's-
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's late now. But anyway. All righty.
well, we're used to, honestly, you know, that's what we're here for.
yeah, no, exactly, I'm just,
I think we capped it at 11, so,
oh, really?
didn't we cap it at
Larry
11?
was here the time we went to like 1:30 in the morning when we used to meet at the senior center.
I think we capped it.
Library.
It was late.
Special events coordinator plant.
Yeah, we gotta do
It was definitely on, well, we had one a long time on the wastewater treatment plant.
Not the selection, the cherry
Like that?
the data,
Putting my stuff
2:30 in the morning.
Story.
I really should.
We can be very not nice.
It can be what?
Very not nice.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Well, Larry,
We had-
I
we
think
had-
our two mutual.
I am gonna leave and you can do the minutes and finish up. And you know how to lock up?
Thanks, Jeff.
You know how to lock up?
No, I don't know what the code is.
Well, I'm not gonna say it
I'll
on
do it.
camera.
I
You
got
know
it.
how,
He knows all he's, that's right.
I'm not saying it on
He's a
camera.
veteran.
All right,
So,
have
okay.
to run. Thank
No
you.
reserve fund.
We'll
We
see you
have no
Tuesday.
reserve fund transfers.
Right.
So let's move on to the approval of the meeting minutes that,
I read both of them. One of them I'm not here for. It's the second or the fourth.
and I read both of them, and I didn't recommend any changes. I mean,
I thought they were fine.
I thought they were fine too, except there's one I can't vote for.
Christine? So those were the minutes of which two, wait a minute,
They were the second and the fourth.
the second and the fourth. Do I have a motion on the minutes of the second?
One of them I wasn't here, so I can't make the
I'll move-
motion.
I was there, so I'll move the motion. I'll tell you who. Didn't we
All in
already talk?
favor? And how about the minutes of the fourth?
I'm gonna guess I was here for that one.
I'm sorry, what was the vote? I'm sorry.
So you were not
To-
here on the
It's
second.
unanimous to accept them as presented. The minutes of,
Everyone was here on the
second.
4th.
I think it was
So-
two
Two
abstaining.
abstain.
Two, okay, that's what I thought. That's four.
So it's
502. 402.
402.
Yeah, sorry.
Presume.
Okay. And then for the
KS
fourth,
and Jared, I'm sorry, you were the other one.
Abstained,
that
yes.
Abstained.
move we accept the minutes as
I'll second.
written.
Second.
discussion, all in favor? Okay. And Jeff, I'll try to let you know about Tuesday, as soon as I know something.
Very good minutes.
Yeah,
Okay,
like-
any
I
new
like the
business?
what?
Any new business?
No.
Any
Are
old
we-
business?
Well, the old
Is it-
business, I've already discussed.
Well,
I'm sorry.
is it too early to discuss the essays? Because I've heard that floating around a few times about what we're going to do for essays.
Oh, yeah, no.
I
go-
would think that Kathy's tracking
She
that.
has a list. I mean, I can help write some down as well as Joanne
Okay.
if you want. You know, if you
Yeah,
have something
I'm
to.
just looking for ideas.
Oh,
Well, you
Yeah.
know, I don't want to preempt anything, but maybe after we take a look at some of the warrant articles, maybe
Yeah,
we
good
can
point.
stimulate
Yeah.
some
Oh, there might
thinking.
be some more. I think Kathy has a pretty good
Has
list
she started to
already.
do a list?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, when I used to do, I kept a running list of all the possible topics through
I
the
think she had
entire
two
meeting.
from each.
And then I gave it to everyone, said, here's anything we could possibly write about this year. You'll end up with a good dozen, if not more. Easy.
I really, once Tom gives us the information, the chief gives us that information, I could see Larry going to town on that subject, because you were expounding on it a little bit. more than
Well,
once.
I like what Joni's, I like what
Gotta
Joni was
convince
getting
people
at.
that, You know, Number one
But
priority,
they keep presenting there.
Well,
safety.
it bothered me for some time, but I didn't want to, I wasn't sure if it was just the way things are done, but the fact that there's a budget requested and a budget recommended and they're nearly identical almost gives a false impression that everybody's getting what they want, when in fact we know that that's not the case. And yet every year we have to hear the justification of why they have this other requirement that they're not putting in there. For once, I'd like to hear the justification from the town administrator side of why they're not recommending it.
That's what the Saturday meeting, part of the Saturday meeting is about, but of course I couldn't attend this
Yeah.
one, so I don't know if that happened.
Well, yeah, but
So before you came on, I think, you know, some of us can confirm that extra column used to have what they really wanted. So if, you know, just use Linda, you know, if Linda wanted an extra $50,000 for A, B, and C, it was in there, even though the TA cut it down and
Yeah.
this is what we would be.
yeah,
Right, it's nice to know, because when, as a liaison, you go in and say, okay, why did you ask for 50 grand more, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a nice conversation, because, like, in the case of the police, right, his dispatch request, I mean, if it's something that he really needs, or that the town needs to comply, I would think it would be sort of something that they would want to talk about every year,
Yeah.
in my opinion, but, like, to Kevin's point, if it's not in front of your face all the time,
You don't.
it kind
Yeah.
of just falls to the wayside, so.
One of the property shows, I can't remember which one, and it doesn't break down this neatly, but it could have some ideas in it. They have like what they want in the property, what they must have, and what their wish list is. You could do something along that
That's
line.
kind of what it is, isn't it?
Maybe a few more categories than that.
Used before,
No,
But,
it
you know,
was
this-
at one time the raw number, like, say in the total budget, the police department budget came out to $2.7 million, fully outfitted with, you know, detectives, court officers, 2 lieutenants, all the officers he wanted, plus the 12 dispatchers. You know, that used to be in there, but it did get dwindled down to just what.
To Jared's point, this is my 4th year now. In the first year, those 2 columns, what was requested and what was approved,
Yeah.
they're almost identical now. In the first year I was on this panel,
'Cause
they
that's
were
when they
not that
changed it.
way. And then we'd ask the question, why are you asking for this, and why did you cut it to this?
yeah.
And
And that's
now
my
it's
point.
almost like, they're not identical, but there's very, very few differences, and they're small. And there used to be some significant differences.
Well, please keep in mind, this is an highly, maybe even a unique, one-of-a-kind year. There are
It's a
the
transition.
fingerprints of 3 town administrators.
That's true.
One of whom was acting in his very first role as an acting. And so resulted in what you have observed. The continuity is Barbara, but the finance director, who is almost a magician for getting through the 3, but is not the TA.
Right.
Effectively, I think she is the deputy TA, year-round, year in and year out.
Yeah.
She really is.
Well, I think if there is a desire to maybe change the way things are done, this would be a good time to do it with the new.
So it was brought up a couple of years ago, actually, you know, Jim, you might even remember, because I asked the question at the Saturday meeting, and I'm pretty sure it was Leon's first year, and that's when it was noticed that the numbers in both columns were the same. It's almost like, okay, if they're gonna be the same, why even bother using up the space on the paper? You know, because I always thought that that was our cue to say, you know, to look at the differences and say, okay, why this,
Ask the
why that?
questions.
Ask the questions we need. We're not looking to say, oh, well, forget about the TA's budget, we're gonna take your budget, but it's a starting point of conversation. And that's when you kind of uncover these things that wouldn't ordinarily be uncovered.
There are times, though, in the long distance past, where the finance committee would adjust budget things based on our priority versus other things, and we made adjustments, and different things went to the town meeting.
Right. It's a lot
But it was
har-
the same pot.
But it's a lot harder for us to do that when we can't even point to the point and say they're asking for it because they're officially not asking for it.
Well, his is in the back of the book.
Well, but that's the difference in the back of the book.
But now the chief is gonna give us more information.
Right.
And I don't remember who said this to me, but you guys would know better than I, that it wasn't unusual in the past, after the town meeting, but before the next special town meeting, over the course of the summer, that this committee would get together and talk about things that they,
We used to put out a memorandum of findings. I don't know if we still do that.
but to get together and talk about things that maybe we didn't quite get done, or we question, and we want to address these again, and we don't want time to pass, so we want to get it on the record so that we can dig in on it and be
Yeah, we
prepared
used-
for the next meeting, for the next round.
Exactly. The finance committee used to send it to the board of selectmen, the town administrator, and the finance
Yeah.
director. A memo of findings coming
She still
out of the
does do
budget
that.
process.
And maybe critique one of the budgets, pick one out of the other police department. Well, we had questions about this, so maybe we can talk to the police chief and he can explain. I'm just using that as an
Yeah.
example.
Well, let's keep in mind that while we will be hearing from the chief on officers and on dispatchers, we also have heard, after the chief left, that the TA is universally, at this juncture, not just the library, not adding positions.
Right.
Right.
I understand, Larry.
But we have heard from the chief every year on why he needs these positions. What I have yet to hear from anybody else is why they're not being approved.
Oh,
Right.
you're exactly
Yeah.
right.
Right.
In fact, the little sort of pantomime that he did where he shoved to try to show what he meant,
Yeah.
he just pushed aside the piece of paper with presumably the information on it. He is right. It would be a subject of discussion until it wasn't. Just like that.
Right.
It's part of.
That's a function of leadership. I'm not referring to the chief as leader.
But we have a role in that too. That's part of us pointing out in our report to the taxpayer, because our job, like I said earlier in this thing, in other towns, they're called the advisory panel, but we're there to make recommendations to the taxpayer, or not even the taxpayer, to the voters at the town meeting on how we think they should vote and why they should vote it. And here are other issues, we put that whole section there, other issues for your consideration that you should be looking at that, didn't get addressed but are very important. And-
We have to create awareness,
Yes, education.
okay? I get back to the thing about the resource officers. That gets all type of publicity. People see it as a good thing. There it is. But we got a dark room over there with people there taking phone calls that no one even thinks about, and that's a critical area, but
But
it's
that's
not glamorous. No one knows about it.
But that's the idea of making sure you're, as a member of this committee, aware of the entire pie, what goes into it.
Right.
And what, should be adjusted, may be adjusted, what we recommend, and it's a.
We shine a light on that so people are aware of it. I mean, that's
Correct.
all we can do, because we
That's
can't
all-
change the budget.
Yeah, you can.
Well,
You can.
It's been done before. We've made,
Yeah, no, it has been done.
I remember us doing a smaller pay raise one year for all the town employees. And then the board of selectmen, we went to the town meeting for, I think we were at like 2.78 and they were at 3. But we were adamant it should be 2.78 and we went to town meeting for like that.
and we got the voters to back it up, because that's who's really gonna decide.
Well,
Not
we
us.
also used to have, it hasn't happened lately, but individuals coming before the finance committee asking for increases. One perfect example would be one of the previous Board of Health agents, if you recall.
Yeah.
We didn't approve any, whatever, and that individual came before us twice. And the second time, she was granted an additional like $8,000. I mean, it was a significant increase in salary. No, the Board of, the agent.
Board of Health,
Remember? Yeah. So, stuff like that
Happens.
happens. I don't think we were
We can't exceed the levy limit,
2.5,
but
yeah,
we.
the levy, right. But when you look at the priority, and I know it's in here, and it's in the finance director's thing, comments about, well, this person wanted this, and this person wanted this. We did not fund for it, we did not fund for it. That information, in my opinion, should be in that budget requested. Like the
We also
library,
maybe
right?
want to get more
And she put it in
information
hers
on this
for some reason, but-
compensation survey.
Well, we should
Not just salary
definitely,
survey, get some details on this and get that in there so people
it's
are
in the
aware of
appendix.
that too, because we don't want that to go by the boards. Because once we have that, if it's done correctly, we have,
Right. No, it's a
Map.
basis for a long time
it's
to
a,
come.
and it covers a lot of stuff.
And if they can do the manpower part of the study while they're doing the same thing, if they're able to compare that type to other comparable towns, I'm all for adding that in there, because that'd give us an objective, third-party opinion of, you know, what services, are we providing adequate services, too much, too little? You know, and then figuring out what the pay range for that and what the proper process.
Linda's not the only one that had an issue with the salary. I mean, we just don't hear them all. I've heard a couple of them.
Oh, as liaisons, when you talk
Yes,
to, I've
yeah,
heard of several,
absolutely.
you know.
I think the chance to question is better served by talking about this more and making our own list of what we deny. Because I was struck by the fact that if you add the 13 patrol officers and the 3 sergeants, that's 16 people being administered by a chief of police, a deputy chief, and 2 lieutenants, if I got it right.
No, what,
No, there's no deputy chief. It's the chief and one lieutenant.
lieutenant.
1 lieutenant. So
That's all.
We used to have 2 lieutenants, but he was telling you
One's
he's
vacant.
not filling the second lieutenant because he feels patrolmen are more necessary.
So that was for
We just had a
16
lieutenant
people. That
leave
seems
recently.
more reasonable.
I just think it would be fair to hear, you know, both sides of the story. I'm sure there's reasons. I'm not saying we just do whatever we want and disregard the town administrator's recommendation. I would just like to hear their reasoning at some point.
Exactly, I agree, yeah.
Well, we're also facing the levy limit this year. It's tight.
See, and that's another point that needs to be made, you know what I mean? Like, as part of the, I mean, I had a long discussion with Linda about it as well, you know, I'm like, I know you're hiring an agent, you know, and she's well aware of it, but we also realize that she's up against a wall because she can't get anyone to fill the position. And I remember going through this with the town accountant, she couldn't fill anyone to fill that position either. It worked out because the following year, she was able to give him a little bit more of a boost, right? So, I mean, there are things you can do if there's money, but there's not a lot of money to go around.
But then it comes down to what are the taxpayers willing to pay to have the necessary levels?
I don't think anybody
Services.
wants to have a 2.5 override if
Oh,
that's,
I'm
you know.
not saying that.
No.
I pay a lot in taxes, that's all I know. A lot.
I think we all do.
But,
All right.
good talk.
Andy,
we're all-
that was new business or was that old?
That was new.
But you know what, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's an important thing.
we're all on the same page.
Yeah,
Is there any old business?
Well, I'm gonna hold my old business to the next meeting, so there's more people to.
I guess there's no public access unless there's no public, so I guess someone's gonna
Gentlemen may
call
have a
in.
few objections.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. See you
the
Tuesday.
first official duty,
Wow. I've never run a meeting before.
Declare the time.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll make sure
Oh,
I can get.
it's at 10:37.
9.
9:37. We adjourned at 9:37. Oh, I got the smile.
Kids going there, like,
Wrong time zone. So you don't, I'll make a copy of that in case you need it next time.
You know what, Jim, I have it.
Yeah, it's probably in there somewhere.
I remember I showed it to my husband, so
Oh.
I bet you it's on the countdown, and I just didn't.
I had to
Got a
get,
marketing call today and it said Tantascwa High School on,
Try to
Really?
keep
on the
all that
phone.
stuff.
was trying to differentiate.
spam?
It'd be nice to know, and maybe Barbara can tell us what the difference is. We see
Probably-
that other,
Half the calls.
see what the wages